All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Learning Channel. It is Thursday, but really for a lot of us, it's Fake Friday because we have our PD hours. So, super happy to have you with us this morning. Let's take a quick look at our schedule before we get going. This morning is something we've all been waiting for years. It is finally here. Google Classroom and Infinite Campus Sync. Holy moly, this is going to be awesome, and we have the fabulous, brilliant Stephanie Mills to take us through that. Following that, at 9 o'clock, we have concept mapping, high-yield instructional practice with the MTSS team. Then we have no-tech, low-tech, and other tech tools with Cindy Simpson and Brian Franklin. Then at 10 o'clock, we have gifted services in NTI with Jesse Thompson and Jenny Stiff. Then we have GSSP service delivery models during NTI with Jesse Thompson again. Then we have meeting the needs of ELs with Drew Courtney. And then we have homeless student support with Giselle Danger Hernandez. So this is going to be awesome. I am so excited to have all of you here today. And we are incredibly excited to get this started with Stephanie Mills this morning, talking to us about Google Classroom and Infinite Campus Sync. So Stephanie, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Matt. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
It sounds like it. You have a lot of energy this morning.
Always.
Far more than I do, I think. It's been a crazy week so far, but we're going at it, and we're trying to make all of this happen for all of our teachers before first day. So, do you want me to go ahead and start presenting, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. All right, just confirm for me that you're seeing my screen now, and I'll turn my closed captioning on as well.
Yep, you're there.
All right, perfect. So this morning we're going to go over some of these things. So this is what's up this morning, provision Google Classrooms. We're going to talk about those, and we're going to talk about how those happen and what needs to be in place for those to happen. We're going to talk, I'm just going to reiterate and go over importing rosters to Backpack. It's always important to know that those two things do link up, and that's why we do provision classrooms, is to remove that barrier for our teachers so that you can use both the Google Classroom with updated rosters daily and updated rosters to Backpack, which is important. And then we're going to talk about grade sync, and I will not want to disappoint everybody with my lack of answers this morning, but grade sync is brand new to me. It's brand new to our district. Some exciting news that it just came out of beta a couple of days ago. Beta means it's in like a testing environment, a test run at the software from Google. For Infinite Campus and Google Classroom, it actually just was released into production, which is really exciting. That doesn't mean that they won't continue to do improvements or upgrades to the grade sync feature. It just means that it's in production and they feel really confident about the backbone of the product, okay? So we're gonna go through all of those things this morning. I'm gonna try to go quickly. I know I only have a half an hour. I will speak fast. Thank goodness this is on demand later on, so you can back up and watch it. All right, so we're going to talk about provision Google Classrooms, how those work. When I say provisioned in the IT world, that just means things are being created automatically sort of behind the scenes, that we're not having to manually go in and do things. And so provisioning is a big deal at our scale. 100,000, almost 100,000 kiddos, 7,000 teachers, about 18,000 staff total. So for us, provisioning is what saves the day. But what we use is a tool called Little Sis. Actually, it's from the creators of the folks who built our backpack from Amplified IT, but it is one of the tools that kind of saves our day with Google Classroom. So here's how that works. I promise people over and over again that we make nothing. I don't go in and wave a wand and make anything up. This comes directly from Infinite Campus, okay? So Google Classrooms, when you see this tile at the end, you're kind of seeing the end product in your Google Classroom classes page when you get that accept button. That's our end product. Here's where it starts. It starts in campus. It starts with some things that need to be in place that are true. And I'm going to go through those on my next slide. But we get some extracts from campus with all of those fields that are true. And then those extracts go to a server where Little Sis sits, and Little Sis talks to those extracts. They have a conversation every single night. And we have 15 jobs running on that server to be able to handle and balance the workload for our entire district. And so Little Sis and these extracts have a conversation every night. And then Little Sis says, okay, well, there's something different here. I'm either going to create a new classroom because there's a new course section with a teacher and some rosters, or I'm going to update the roster. What it reads after the initial provisioning, what just happened last weekend, we provisioned over 27,000 Google Classrooms just within 2 days. Of course, that's changed, and it's growing just in the last 3 days. We have even more, but our initial run was 27,000. That means there are 27,000 course sections happening at JCPS, which is astonishing and incredible. And I don't know how we keep all those plates spinning. But so that's how that happens. It comes directly from campus. And usually when we're seeing some sort of error or anomaly or something's not happening on the Google Classroom side, it's because it starts with campus. And we can usually kind of go backward and find the issue. But that's how that works. It starts with campus, goes to extract, speaks with Little Sis every night, and you get something, either you get a creation of a new classroom or you get rosters updated. So that's how that takes place. And sometimes it's really good to know just how the back end works so that you can kind of conceptualize and say, okay, I need to go back to campus and maybe fix something there. So these are the things that must be true to get a provision classroom. The section for the class has to be defined in campus. There has to be a course section, a class defined. The section has to have a valid primary teacher. A lot of folks say, well, we put vacancy in. Well, you won't get a provision classroom that way. It needs to be a real JCPS email address. So sometimes we see some placeholder stuff happen, like a counselor gets put in, and then once that classroom is provisioned to that counselor, then they make the long-term substitute or another teacher a co-teacher in that classroom so they can continue the work, the daily operations of that classroom in Google. But it has to have a valid primary teacher. The teacher's ID in campus must match their Munis ID. So their staff number in campus has to match their Munis ID number. There's at least one valid student with a real JCPS student email address on the roster. That's important too. We have to make sure that all the student email addresses are correct in campus. Some of the errors that we're seeing aren't so much about the JCPS student email address, but we're seeing some very creative staff email addresses that have been put into campus rather than their JCPS email address. That will always result in error, and they will never get their classes provisioned. So make sure, if you're one of the people doing that important job of student and employee records in campus at your school, that those things are correct. A teacher must have a current district assignment and be assigned for upcoming classes. So one of the things that we have some things on the back end, some dates and things that we work with our development team on to be able to get those extracts kind of like preloaded. That teacher needs to have a current district assignment and be assigned to a defined class in campus. So those must be true. And if all of those things are true, it's beautiful. It's like magic. It just works. But when we're seeing errors, it almost always, I will say about 95%, 99% of the time comes back to one of these 5 things at campus. So that's good for everybody to know. And I do want to share this far and wide so we get more coverage and folks understand that that's what this ties back to. So when all of these things true, something magical happens. This does. You get a provision Google Classroom as a teacher. What a beautiful thing. Because what is the one major advantage to having this? I don't have to update my rosters all the time. I don't have to add and remove. The information's just there for me. And this is where this is so important to use a provision classroom for those up-to-date rosters for 2 reasons now. Our major reason for the last couple of years has been backpack rosters. So those are updated. And now grade sync. This will be vital to GradeSync just working correctly for you. So, I'll get into some of the details later. There are a lot of details to go over, but when all of those things are true in campus and little sis and campus have that conversation and they shake hands, teachers will get this beautiful created for them classroom with updated rosters every 24 hours. So huge barrier reduction. And this has been happening for a couple of years, but we're really seeing it come to fruition through our backpack and also through now NTI days. And that this is really our platform for delivery. So just a reiteration of how Google Classroom rosters import to Backpack. Once you're in Backpack and you click on rosters, all of us should be familiar with this. You'll get that plus sign in the top right-hand corner, and you can actually import from Google Classroom. So that will be live updated for teachers as well. That's just my coverage for Backpack. I always have to make sure that we're remembering we are remembering our backpack as it's one of our 3 pillars at JCPS. Looks like I'm having an issue with my slide deck. Are you guys hearing me?
Yeah, you're still good, Steph. We
Okay.
just saw that it said things wouldn't work.
Well, I may have to just... It's not really wanting to go. It's not wanting to advance to the next slide. So I'm going to actually, just for the sake of moving right along, I'm going to not present. Unfortunately, that will take closed captioning out, but I don't want to spend any more time. I'll try it once more. No, it's not reloading. But let me just move on. But you guys can see this presentation, correct?
Yes.
In this format?
Yes, we can. You're good.
Okay. I don't want to take any more time up with technical issues. So I'm going to move on in this format. And I apologize for those of you who don't have closed captioning, but we will share the slide, or that the closed captioning isn't working, but we will share the slide deck so that you can go through it in your free time. Teacher setup for GradeSync. So that's the next thing we're going to move on to. That's what everybody wants to hear about right now. We know that we can get these provision Google Classrooms. They import to our backpack beautifully. So now GradeSync. And I will tell you, I am not yet the expert on GradeSync. I wish I were. So, but I will be, I can assure you that. I think it'll just take a couple of weeks, and it's one of those things like trial by fire. We're gonna learn everything we need to know about it as soon as this works. Why it doesn't work right now, and why we haven't been able to test it at JCPS yet, we didn't have an open term window. So most of you listening to this will know the awesome Amy Mueller. She and I tried many times. We almost got ourselves in a little bit of trouble trying to test this back and forth, and we realized we were getting this error because we didn't have an open window. It starts 8:25. So GradeSync, Google, and Infinite Campus are smart enough to speak to each other and say, hey, there's an open section here, so we can't read back yet. And so that's why we don't have all the answers of what this is going to look like in IC yet. But I assure you, and I am looking for people to pilot this. So if you want to be partners with me and get to know me very well over the next few weeks, I'm looking for volunteers. So if you want to volunteer, you're listening to this and you want to put that in chat, one of our awesome digital innovation leaders will get your name to me, and I will reach out, and we will work together on this so that I can get everyone informed and scale this out to everybody. So I will tell you, prefacing this, I don't have all the answers yet. I do have some. So how do we set it up? Some of you may have already done this. The first thing you'll do is log into Google Classroom. You see your classes pages, and you'll choose the class. And we really highly encourage you using that provision that created for you Google Classroom. So those rosters are up to date, so the information is there for you, and that's one less thing you have to worry about. Okay, so you'll go to your Google Classrooms page. You're going to choose your class. And once you're in your class, you want to go to the class settings. Where do you find your class settings? In the top right-hand corner. I call it that little settings cog or wheel. If someone ever has a better definition for that little icon, please tell me, but I kind of waffle between the two. And so that little settings cog or wheel in the top right-hand corner, that gets you to your class settings for that class, for that specific Google class. So, and once you're there, you'll scroll to the middle of the page and you'll see in the general settings this little button that says link to class. Isn't that awesome? So what happens when I click that? Well, when I click that, I actually, if I am a teacher who has classes in Infinite Campus and everything's aligning, and if you're using a provision classroom, this will work. If you're creating one manually, I can't guarantee this will work for you. But if you are using that provision classroom, you will see this drop down. So you'll click that link to class and you'll get a drop down and you'll choose the class. This should be directly from Infinite Campus. You should see your course section and you will align that Google Classroom with the Infinite Campus class that you want this to tie back to. And I would highly encourage, this is a one-to-one, one Google Classroom to one Infinite Campus class. Okay, so it's really pretty much that easy. You go in, you link the class, and that's it. It's linked up. Okay, that's step. Well, it says step 3, but that's really the first step to getting this going. But if you do make an incorrect selection, you can fix it. Okay, if you've already synced grades, I don't know how that's going to look yet, but we're going to figure that out because it will happen. But if you realize, oh my gosh, I chose the wrong section, I need to fix this, you can do that. The teacher has full autonomy to do that by clicking unlink and going through the process back here of relinking. Okay, so you can unlink and link, and it's okay as long as you haven't synced grades yet. You're in the clear. Once you've synced grades, not sure how we're going to fix that 100% yet. But I believe we put a man on the moon 51 years ago in August of this year, and we are in August. So 51 years ago, we can fix this too, and we will figure it out for you. We will work together. So it's really that easy of just general link to class, choosing the IC class for that Google Classroom, and then you'll see it show up here. That class is linked. I think that is beautiful for our teachers. So the next step is, well, Stephanie, how do we get this back to, that's great, we've set it up, but now what? Okay. So we need to navigate back to our grade book. Here are some notes. Grades must be returned to students before they can be synced. They have to be returned to the student. They must have a numerical value. If the student does not exist in your SIS, but exists in Google Classroom, the grades will not sync. This is where using that provision Google Classroom is vital for the success of this product. And then once all of those things are true, it's returned, there's a numerical value, you know that you're using your provision classroom, so no problems there. You click that SIS export, and then they should be synced. Well, that's what I was really looking forward to. I had created a class on Amy Mueller helped me out. We were doing all of this, and then I was getting an error. Well, that's when we figured out that grading, that window wasn't open. 825 hadn't hit yet. That's okay.
Stephanie, sorry. We have a lot of questions in the chat about how this would work for elementary school teachers. Is it like a one-to-one sync, or if they have one Google Classroom for multiple different subjects, how would that work? That's where I'm going to need some help. I'm going to need some friends to help me out with that, because I'll be very candid, and I always am. We don't know yet. I don't have that answer yet. So if there's someone out there watching this and is interested in partnering with me, I would love that. I would love to do that so that we can educate everybody on how this works. My suggestion now is one-to-one. You have one Google Classroom to one class back in IC. I would not recommend trying to bundle something on the Google Classroom side and trying to send all of that back to IC. I just don't think it will work correctly, just from a logical back-end perspective. But I am willing to work with anybody who's willing to work with me to see what all of our options are. And I want to make sure that we have options for preschool through 12th grade. So whatever those look like, those scenarios, I actually talked with the amazing Amy Thornton over at Brown School, and she said, have you ever seen an elementary school report card printed out? And I said, no, I haven't.
She said, I don't even know how they make that happen. I don't know how this is going to work. And I said, well, you know what? We're going to figure it out. So right now I would say 1-to-1, one Google Classroom to one class back in IC. And I know that's not optimal, but I think for now, until we know what all the caveats are within the system, that's how we're going to have to proceed.
Hey, Steph, another popular question in there. Just wanted to verify that it does not impact anything if you change the name of the classroom in classroom.
Right. So we get, once we provision classrooms, you get all sorts of really long, weird, funky names. And teachers change those all the time. I do not believe, because manually creating a classroom and linking it back is technically possible, I don't think that's going to impact anything. I think you're safe to go ahead and rename that class as long as you know what it is and you know what it ties back to in campus. I think that's totally fine.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else before I move on?
No, I think that's it for now. Those were the two biggest questions. So.
Okay. Right. And just, innovation is messy, folks. We're moving through this at 100 miles an hour. Every day, folks ask me how I'm doing. I'm like, well, I'm riding my unicycle at 100 miles an hour is how I'm doing. And we're just, that it's going to be that way for a little bit until we get this totally nailed down and figured out. But we're going to figure it out and we're going to get answers. So once you have that SIS export button there, because you've linked, you're in business as long as that window is open, as long as you're in an active term. When you're prompted, you will get, once you hit that SIS export button, you will get this screen that pops up that lets you choose all of the assignments, or you can just do pending assignments, one at a time. At this time, one of these notes down here, we do not support syncing grade categories. Only the grade themselves will sync. Again, I really encourage you to get the link to the slide deck and read these notes. I don't want to read through all of them. I know we're running short on time, but that's important to understand. You can also you can view previously excluded grades if they're applicable in this window. So you can sync them all back, or you can sync one coursework title at a time. So some notes for teachers, co-teachers from outside JCPS. So sometimes we have student teachers who come in and we make them co-teachers because we've whitelisted them at the university side and at our side. And then we have that beautiful collaboration that can happen. Those folks will not be able to do this because they're not tied back to that class in campus. Only the person who's tied back to it. Same goes with substitute teachers. They're not tied back as that primary teacher. So the primary teacher for that classroom who's tied to these classes in IC will be the one who needs to export the grades. You can read through their assignment titles will be truncated to 50 characters. Well, I can't believe that we would have assignment titles over 50 characters, but I guess it's possible. Infinite Campus will assign a default grade category for your assignment. So these are things that I don't know a lot about, that I'm not going to claim to be the expert on that. But just be aware of these notes that are in here. And these are straight from Google and Infinite Campus. They work together. And these are not things I made up. These are things they made up for you. All assignments have to have a due date. So the notes on this side of the screen are very important. Those assignments have to have a due date. They have to be returned to the student. Here are reasons that the export may fail. So please, when you get your hands on the slide deck, read through these notes. This is what I pulled directly from what Google gave me. Some recommendations: use that provision classroom and manually created classroom, meaning you created it yourself and added folks to the roster, should work. But we really highly encourage that provision Google Classroom for the updated rosters and that added layer of knowing that the email addresses that have to speak to one another are correct. Google has to speak with that email address for that student and for the teacher back to campus and vice versa. So we have to make sure those match. Using that provision classroom helps add that layer of insurance. Okay. I would sync one Google Classroom to one IC class section for now.
Steph, to be sure to clarify, you did say that all this grade sync stuff is completely optional, correct?
It is absolutely optional. You do not need to do this.
Thank
If you do not want to do this, this is just an added bonus. It's something folks have asked for. We've had a lot of high flyers ask for it for a while. You don't need to do this. This is not something that you have to do. If you want to do it, we want to partner with you and we want to work through it, because long-term we can see this being a great barrier reduction and just less work on the teacher, hopefully overall. But right now we don't have 100% of the answers on it. We don't support the grade syncing or syncing grade categories. And K2, there was a specific question that came to me about K2 and I think elementary overall, because there are, the use of rubrics and how will that work. I'm looking for volunteers. So please, if you're interested, let me know. And digital innovation leaders, let me know. I'm not watching the chat. If someone says, yeah, I'm raising my hand, please, I want to do this and I want to get answers for the rest of our district, work with me on this so that we can get those. And again, like you said, you asked Kyle, it is optional. You don't have to do this, but anybody who's willing, that would be wonderful. So that's all I have for my slide deck today. I think I'm actually finishing about 4 minutes early. Avenues for support, jcps.me/help, submit a ticket. That's how you're going to get a hold of, someone will flag me. Someone will tell me, hey, Stephanie, a ticket came in, and this is about grade sync. I would suggest actually in the summary line saying Google grade sync. And that will get to the right place, and someone will take me by the shoulders and get my attention and say, hey, we've got something on grade sync. Just remember that everything starts here. Everything starts back with campus at some level. And so either you're using grade sync or you're using the provision classroom. At some point, everything's tying back to campus. So we have to just keep that in mind that things have to be 100% there for them to work all the way across this whole process. I think that's all I have for today. I'll quit presenting here. Screen sharing. Anything else that any questions outstanding, Matt, before I leave?
I'm trying to scroll through really quickly and look. Just a lot of those questions about what it would look like for elementary teachers with the different subjects. And somebody said that I think writing and your ELA syncs up to reading. I'm trying to find where that was somewhere. It says writing falls under reading on Infinite Campus for elementary ELA teachers. So probably just some things we'll have to figure out there as people volunteer to help out. Which you had a lot of volunteers in the chat, so hopefully our digital innovation leaders there can generate a list of those names and help us out and get those to you. So
fantastic. Well, thank you, Matt. I will go back and actually watch this and try to catch those names in the chat as well.
Awesome.
And I will be reaching out through an email personally for me. This is a big enough undertaking that I want to make sure it's getting the attention it needs. So thank you for having me today. I'm looking forward to reading any of the other questions that were in the chat and getting back to folks as I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. We appreciate you always for your brilliance and your leadership throughout all of this. And you really are stepping on the moon here for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. Have a great day.
You too. All right, everybody. It is 8:58. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. I know so many of you have so many questions about GCIC Sync. So if you want to go back and look at that presentation from Stephanie this morning, you can go to jcps.me/NTI, click on the teacher toolkit and go to the live virtual learning schedule. That'll bring you right here. And let's refresh that so you can see her presentation in there. All of these blue links in here you can click and that'll open up their presentation so you can see that Stephanie's presentation is right here talking about Google Classroom and Infinite Campus. I am also posting the links to these in the chat, so I think I've been doing it every time a minute ends on a 0, so like 8:40, 8:50, I'm posting a link to the schedule, and every time it ends on a 5, so 35, 45, 55, I'm posting a link to the presentation, and that's the pattern I'll continue all day. That way I'm not overloading the stream with too many links, and that way you can also get it every 10 minutes or so. So coming up at 8:59, we have concept mapping, high yield instructional practice with the MTSS engagement team. But before that, remember, if you want to tweet out about how awesome you think some of these sessions are, if you need any questions, or you want to tweet about how awesome someone in your school is, or something great you or your students are doing, follow us on Twitter at JCPSDigIn and use the hashtag JCPSDigIn when you tweet at us. Whoops, it's my Aunt Mary's birthday tomorrow. And that will let us retweet and follow you and share your awesome work with the rest of the world. Additionally, you guys are currently on jcpsdigitallearning.com because you're watching this, but if you go to the playlist, you can see that we have a teacher NTI 2.0 playlist. And that has, let's see how many videos are in here. We have 51 videos in here from the past few weeks. All of these sessions will be broken up, so that Google Classroom Infinite Campus sync question or video, you can go back later and find. I will be at 12:30 or 12 o'clock when we get done in here. I'll take a quick lunch break, and then I'll get on and I will break all those sessions up. So, all right. It looks like up next we have the MTSS engagement team. Welcome. How are you, Sarah?
Good. How are you?
Great. Thank you. All right, we are good to present whenever you are.
Okay.
All right, and chat side, remember, if you guys have any questions, please let us know where you're from, and let us know how we can help you. All right, go ahead, Sarah.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. If you just go to present, do you know how to put on closed captions?
I do not.
Okay, well, first click where it says hide right on that white box right there.
Let me get out of present mode.
Oh, no, you're good. You could click it while you're there. You see where it says hangouts.google.com is sharing your screen at the bottom?
Oh, yes.
Yep, just hit hide right there.
Okay.
Okay, and then move your mouse to the left a little bit. And you see where it says CC Captions on that bottom bar?
Yes.
Click on CC. There you go. That's great.
Is it on?
Go ahead and hit allow for your microphone. And there you go. Actually, where you clicked CC, will you click that arrow that goes down? Yep. And then will you go to text size?
Okay.
And then go to large for me.
Large. Okay.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Oh no, now you have to do it all over again.
Oh no.
You're okay.
A lot of work in your department.
We're all learning and growing here. So you can just hit the CC again. It'll keep it at large for you. So
Okay.
there you go.
Are we ready?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay. Good morning. We're glad you're here to learn more about concept mapping. Welcome to the JCPS MTSS training on the Teacher Clarity Toolkit with a focus on the high yield practice concept mapping. I am Sarah Adams, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with Elementary Zone 1. With me, I have Stephanie Roberts, who also supports Zone 1, and Melissa Logston with Zone 3. Please take a moment to type the case-sensitive bit.ly into your web browser, and this will allow you access to all the links for future reference. We'll also put the link in the chat.
Here we go. Yep, and I put that link in there for us. So if you guys in the chat, if you just want to click on that second link that I posted, that takes you right to this presentation.
Okay, thank you. Let me start by showing you the components of our department, multi-tiered system of support known as MTSS. This concept map shows a visual of the departments within MTSS. The MTSS academic department provides teachers with Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention and academic support. And you can see that they're located under teaching and learning. Then under culture and climate, we have the MTSS behavior department, which supports schools in implementing school-wide behavior systems and frameworks, including PBIS and restorative practices. The MTS re-engagement department supports students who are transitioning back to their home schools Reminder Daniels Academy, and Breckenridge Metropolitan. Then you have our department, the MTSS Engagement Department. The goal of our department is to increase student achievement by equipping teachers with high-yield pedagogical practices to maximize student engagement. The point of contact for each department is located and linked in the concept map. Six MTSS toolkits were created to provide resources for Tier 1 instructional practice to increase student engagement and reduce student behaviors. Here are the 6 toolkits. By clicking the toolkit image, you will access the MTSS department webpage and each toolkit. So I'm going to click on Teacher Clarity because that's the one that we're using today, just to give you an idea what it looks like. So if you look at this, and if you see the bar across the top, you will see all of our toolkits. And then if you click on a toolkit, you will see the high yield practices. So there's a lot of good information there you might want to check out. So when we think about concept mapping, we are referring to teacher clarity. Teacher clarity focuses on where students are going in their learning, how they are progressing, and where they will go next. Concept mapping is used to explain information to students in a logical and coherent manner. It refers to the provision of a context for lesson content where it fits into a larger picture. When teachers call students back to prior learning, discuss learning targets, and ask for real examples, they are helping to build a context that effectively creates a concept map. Today, we will develop a deeper understanding of implementing concept mapping into everyday instruction. Check out this concept mapping video.
How to create a concept map. What is a concept map? A concept map is a visual way to organize thoughts and make connections between ideas. How can I use a concept map? You can use a concept map to brainstorm and organize ideas, create an outline for an assignment, or test your knowledge and review for exams. How do I make a concept map? By following these 7 steps. Step 1. Start by identifying the main topic and brainstorm everything you know about it. Use all relevant content from lectures, texts, and other course material. Step 2. Organize your information into main points. Step 3. Start creating your map. Begin with your main topic, then branch out to major points and supporting details. Step 4. Review your map and look for more connections. Use arrows, symbols, and colors to show relationships between ideas. Step 5. Include details. Definitions, equations, and diagrams are all useful. Step 6. Analyze and improve your map. Ask yourself, how do these ideas fit together? Have you made all necessary connections? Is the map accurate, logical, and detailed? Step 7. As you learn more, update your concept map to reflect your better understanding. Try talking out loud about your concept map. Ask yourself, can I describe the connections between these ideas? Following these 7 simple steps will allow you to create a concept map to help you study. For more information, get in touch.
These are the 7 steps on creating a concept map from the video. First, you want to identify the topic and then organize your information. This is where you will start creating your map. When reviewing your map, look for those connections and include details. You can use arrows, symbols, and colors to show the relationships between ideas. You can analyze and improve your map to reflect better understanding. Ask yourself, how do these ideas all fit together? Have you made all those connections? And as you learn more, or as your students learn more, update the concept map to reflect the better understanding.
Hey guys, Stephanie Roberts here, and I'm going to walk you all through some various ways to use concept maps as instructional tools. The first one we're looking at is an advanced organizer. It's a constructed map for an entire unit of study. It basically creates a large-scale map where a series of more specific maps will be drawn or created to show more detail as you go through the lessons of your unit. At the beginning of your unit, you want to make sure that you communicate and explain each piece of the map with the students. And then when you learn new concepts, you'll refer back to it each time. Concept maps can also be used as a way to introduce a topic. The theory of concept mapping is based on the integrating new knowledge with prior knowledge, and this will allow your students to make connections as you move through standards and different concepts. You can also create a course map, which is a concept map that's co-constructed by the teacher and students. This collective map is created as a unit progresses. So through discussions, the students will provide input for the map by giving ideas, making their own connections, which also allows them to take ownership of their contributions to the map. Take a second and check out these alternative options. All right, you can also use concept maps as formative assessment tools. One way to do that is to have the students complete the map. You can have them fill in the concepts or linking words within a map. As a scaffold, you can also give them a list of words in which to choose from to put in the correct place. You can utilize a concept map as an opportunity to respond through a written response. Based on where your students are in their learning, you could have them add linking lines to show the connections. They could label them, they could provide justification. You could also structure an essay or writing assignment for students based on a concept map to help them organize their ideas. For a higher level thinking activity, students could also create their own concept map to accompany their writing.
I really, this is Stephanie, right?
Yes.
Yes, I love this idea. So I taught chemistry for 5 years, and my second year of teaching it, I started using concept mapping with my students at the end of every unit. And then, so I would have them place the terms. I gave them like laminated ones in a baggie and like some long butcher paper. I'd have them place them, and like you said on here, adding the linking lines with some writing. And then after they did that as a group, they had to go write their own essay that linked all the stuff together. And then each unit, we had 8 units, they would have to pull out their first unit and link it to the second one, and then pull out the first 2 and link it to the third one. And it was the connections they were able to make and the learning they were able to have based on that from my first year teaching. It was just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also noticed, just with observations and going in classrooms, when we talk about opportunities to respond, written responses are usually the ones we don't see as often. We have a lot of teachers ask us, What are some quick and simple ways we can add in written responses and get kids to do more writing? So this is a great way to utilize that. Alrighty, you also can use a misconception map as a formative assessment tool. Here you would basically give them inaccurate connections among different topics, or you could give them linking lines or connections throughout the map that didn't quite make sense. Basically just giving them ideas that don't belong and let them kind of make those corrections. And then you'll see at the bottom of this slide, we also linked an article. That article involves all of these different various ways that we talked about with concept maps, but it also provides visuals that go with them. So if you're interested in looking at the pieces we just talked about, you can see an example of the actual map and what that may look like through this article. All right, so when you're creating a concept map, there's a few key points to consider. It works best if students have some prior knowledge. Concept maps are most effective if they're co-constructed with the students, or even something where the students maybe create and then the teacher gives feedback and things like that. They are also a great visual display that's going to enhance reading comprehension, no matter what subject area you're working in.
Hello everyone, I'm Melissa Loxton and we're going to look at some examples of concept maps. This first example utilizes your learning intentions and success criteria within your lesson frame. Here you will notice that the concept map was created as a way to provide student-friendly language while retaining the intent and rigor when communicating the lesson frame. This is the same example, but utilizing Jamboard for virtual learning. The previous example was elementary. Check out the secondary example and notice that it connects prior knowledge to new content and allows students to backtrack to see the larger picture. Again, you can use Jamboard to create these concept maps with students at all levels during virtual learning. This example shows concept mapping with content. This example, utilizing Jamboard, provides a visual for making connections with natural resources. As a side note, when creating concept maps, you can upload images which are beneficial for younger students or ECE, ESL students. Take a look at this example of a concept map from an art class utilizing content. Concept maps can also be used for vocabulary within content. Here is one example of how you could do that. This example shows a way you could formatively assess with a reflection. You can also utilize concept mapping with your PLC as a planning tool. Concept maps can be used for part of the planning within the PLC process, like in this example. You can also create a concept map for planning a lesson or a unit.
Melissa, we had someone in the chat ask, how could concept maps be used in kindergarten?
You could co-construct them with your students. You could think of words that begin with the letter B, sight words.
And I've also seen kindergarten teachers use them as assessments. And like if they were doing parts of fish or something, they had the students draw pictures, especially at the beginning of kindergarten when they're still learning words. They would have them draw the picture, and then the kids would try to form the word. So that's another way that you could assess, or they could use it in discussion as well. But you would definitely have to model it with the students first, but there would probably be more visuals and pictures with the kindergartners.
That's great. Thank you.
Now that you have seen various ways and examples of concept mapping, we hope you enjoy finding ways to embed it into your instruction and/or PLC.
Okay, so we are quickly just going to go look at how this Jamboard would work for those of you who are not familiar. All right, give me just a second. Okay, so when you go to your drive, you're going to go to the waffle in the right-hand corner, and then just scroll down. It's almost towards the bottom, and you'll click on the Jamboard. And you can also create these. You saw in one of the examples, just utilizing a Google slide where you just create the boxes and then you can draw lines to make connections. But an interactive way that you could utilize it is through those Jamboard examples that we showed. So when you create a new Jamboard, you go to the bottom right corner and just click the plus sign. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of making a sticky note and then a couple ideas. So on the left-hand side where you have all of your different options, the fourth one down is the sticky note. When you create a sticky note, you'll just type what you want it to say. Save it, and then you can maneuver it around the board. A couple of different things to think about when you're creating concept maps with kids. We talked about one of the best ways to do that is to co-construct with them. So you could do one of two things. You could facilitate the whole Jamboard where they have viewing rights and they can just kind of tell you, hey, I want you to add this, or I think this word could mean, like illustrate means to draw, and you concept map those pieces. Or you can have kids have editing rights where they can go in, put their own sticky notes, and then manipulate the Jamboard to make connections and draw lines and things like that. It kind of depends on how much modeling and where you are with it. You may want to start out just showing them the idea behind the concept map first. So then if we put another sticky note, we can change the color. And as we keep making different sticky notes, we can use the pin, which is the top option, and just connect to wherever that's going to make sense. And you can have students throw these on here, or you can just take their ideas, like I said, and do that as well. So just a quick overview of how that could work with your students for virtual learning. All right, here on this last slide, we put a link here for our website if you're interested in looking at those MTSS toolkits or any other of our high yield practices. And Matt, that's all we've got for you today.
Well, that was great. Thank you so much. We had a lot of love for concept maps in the chat. Tatiana just said, do we use teachers Jamboard or our Jamboard as a substitute teacher? Do you guys want to answer that?
What was the question?
So she's a sub, and they wanted to know, as a substitute teacher, would they use their own Jamboard that they make with the kids that day? Would it be better to use a teacher's Jamboard? Like, probably best to use a teacher's Jamboard in that situation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I would assume that they still have access to a Google Drive. But I would.
Not sure.
It's because I think that's the question. Is she going to use the teachers, or does she have her own maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really sure about that. I don't know. Do substitutes have access to a Google Drive, or do they typically use the classroom teachers?
I'm actually not sure about that either. Maybe we can get one of our wonderful substitute teachers to let us know in the chat so we can
Yes.
more effectively answer that. All right, well, I don't see any other questions. So one thing I do want to say is I love the use of Jamboard in your presentation, because that is like, Jamboard is the NTI superstar of applications. And it looks like Tatiana said they do have their own Google Drive in there. So
Okay, great. So yeah, I would go ahead and get on there and practice and play around with it.
Mhm.
It's
awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Your presentation is linked on those on that schedule there, so people can go back and look at it whenever. And this video will be broken up sometime this afternoon and put on our channel. So
Thank you.
thank you. We appreciate
Have
you
a
all.
great day.
You too. Bye. All right, everyone. So hope you're having a great morning so far. It is 9:27, so we are going to take a look around at some of our other stuff before we get started on our 9:30 session. If you go to, and I will type it in, jcps.me/NTI, that is going to take you to the JCPS NTI website. If you click on the teacher toolkit, and then you click on where it says live virtual learning schedule, it'll take you to these slides, to the spreadsheet right here. This is our schedule for the day. So we've gone through Google Classroom Infinite Campus Sync with Stephanie Mills. We just got done with concept mapping, and we are about to move into no tech, low tech, and other tech tools with Cindy and Brian. Before we get there, though, I would like to remind you that our JCPS Dig In, or Digital Innovation Twitter account, would love to have you as a follower. We would also love for you to tweet out the awesome things you're doing with your staff, with your students, as we gear up for NTI 2.0 next Tuesday, which is crazy that it's so close. So tweet the awesome things you're doing, the awesome things you're having your students do, the awesome things your coworkers are doing. We love to give that a like, give it a retweet, and show it some love. Also, if you go to jcpsdigitallearning.com, which is where you are right now, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because every time we go live or post a new video, you'll get a notification about it. And every video we've been doing the past 2 weeks are on the NTI 2.0 teacher playlist here. So you can see we've got 51 videos, and actually we just had somebody upload another one today. So if you missed out on facilitating virtual circles, go ahead and check it out. If you missed out on multitasking on a Chromebook by arranging windows, go ahead and check that out. That's a nice short one. We also have other playlists for principals, for family and community. We have backpack stuff on there if you want to go check that out. So remember, I will be posting the link to the schedule in the chat every 0, so 30, 40, 50, so on. And then every 5 minutes, so 35, 45, 55, I'll be copying and pasting the link to the current presentation in our chat as well. We have our awesome digital innovation leader, Russ Hockenberry, in here with us, providing any support. So please let him know if you have any questions and how he can help you out. So, and please, in the chat, let us know what school you're from, what you teach, and thanks for being here. So it is 9:30. We are going to move on to our next session, which is No Tech, Low Tech, and Other Tech Tools. That is with Cindy Simpson and Brian Franklin. Welcome. How are you all today? Oh, I think you might be muted, Cindy. No, still can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Cindy, either.
We can hear Brian. How's it going, Brian?
Good. How are you, Matt?
I'm great, thank you.
We both got the COVID hair going on still.
I know. I'm like real close to like man bunning it right there. So.
I have one. I have a successful man bun.
It's pretty glorious, yeah.
Can you all hear me now?
Yay! There you are.
Okay, good. I must have had the wrong microphone on. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Alrighty, so it's 9:30. The floor is all yours.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started, and I will share my screen. All right, can everybody see the slideshow?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, and I'm going to turn on captions.
Awesome. You're a pro.
All right, and hopefully you can still hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Brian and I are going to talk about No Tech.
Sorry, I hate to be this. It's not picking up your. Oh, there it is. Will you actually change the size of your closed caption to large? That way we pick it up a little easier.
Sure. Let's
Thank you.
see.
Awesome.
How's that?
Yep, that's
Is that
great.
better?
Yep, thanks, Cindy.
Sure. So Brian and I are going to talk about No Tech, Low Tech, and Other Tech Tools today. I'm going to start off with No Tech and Low Tech, and then Brian will finish up with the Other Tech Tools. And when we're talking about No Tech and Low Tech Tools, today's presentation is going to focus on those tools that we can use for students that are nonverbal or have minimal verbalizations to help them access communication. And also just for general instruction for those students that might need extra picture supports or object supports during instruction. So the no tech or unaided would include things such as gestures, signs or finger spelling, facial expressions, and body language. Our low tech or aided would include things such as objects, picture books and photographs, pictures, just single pictures, picture boards, and writing.
Cindy, I hate being this person. It's not picking up your closed captioning, it's picking up mine for some reason. Do you have Google Hangout open in another tab at the top, maybe?
Let me check. No.
I'm not sure what's going on then. All right, go back over. Will you hit exit real quick on your presentation and then go to present one more time and see if it works? I'm not sure why it's not picking you up. And then you just have to...
Is it picking me up now?
Well, closed captions isn't on right now, that's why. Okay, let's see.
Now is it picking me up?
No. I have no idea what's going on.
Well, let's see.
That's weird.
That is very weird.
It's fine. We can... when people go back and watch this, they can always turn on the closed captioning for the YouTube video, and it'll pick it up there. So,
okay,
yeah.
All right. I apologize for that.
Oh, it's
I don't know
fine.
what's going on.
It's weird.
But you all can still hear me, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so the no tech or unaided options, the gestures, signs, finger spelling, facial expressions, and body language. We're going to jump into those. So gestures, for example, would include things such as pointing, using head shakes and nods, using a thumbs up, thumbs down, things of that nature. Signs and finger spelling would include things such as American Sign Language or Signing Exact English, or using sign approximations. Sample instructional activity using pointing would be the sight word splat. So for example, if you want to work on sight words with your students, you can lay them out on the floor using sticky notes or little
pieces of paper, fun colored paper. And then you can give the student a fly swatter, a spoon, a spatula, or they can just use their finger to point. So you would say a word, and then they would point to the word that you said or splat it with their fly swatter or their spatula. Another no-tech option would be facial expressions. Some of our students have significant motor impairments, so they might use a smile for a yes response when you're asking them questions. Some of these students do well with what we call partner-assisted scanning. And in a nutshell, what partner-assisted scanning is the student's partner would scan the choices auditorily, and they can also show picture supports while they're presenting the options to them. And then the student would provide their yes response, whether that's a smile or an eye blink, whatever they're using for their yes response, to indicate the choice that they want when you get to that choice. And here I have a handout from the lady that developed partner-assisted scanning, Linda Burkhart, and it goes into a little bit more detail about what that is. And then this is a link to a YouTube video. I'm going to play that. Let me know if you all can't hear it. Let's go do something. I'm asking a question. Are you sharing something? I'm telling you something. Yes. I'm asking a question. Yes. You are asking this question. Tell me yes or no. Do you want to? What's happening? Where is? Where are you going? Yes. Where is? Yes. You are asking a question. Where is? So good.
It's a little hard to hear at some points, Cindy, but I think most people are kind of getting the gist of it just because you can see her fingers moving through it.
Okay, so that was the example of partner-assisted scanning. You can go back and look at that video if you want to see the full piece. But that just kind of gives you a little snapshot of what partner-assisted scanning would look like in the classroom. Another option for no tech would be body language. So again, for some of our students who have significant motor impairments, they could use eye gaze. So here, someone just used baseball card holders and cut out the middle so that they could see where the student is gazing, which picture they're gazing at. This is an example of an alphabet board using just a piece of cutout cardboard to use eye gaze. So a sample instructional activity using eye gaze, they could just practice spelling their sight words. So initially the student would look at the box that contains the letter that they want to indicate. And then once you see which box that they want, then you would have them gaze at the color that corresponds to the letter in that box. So low tech or aided options, those would include things such as objects, pictures or photographs, picture books, picture boards, and writing. So for objects, you can use common items around the home, such as toys, utensils, foam boards, yarn, felt, clay, food containers, things of that nature. Texas School for the Blind also has a tactile symbols inventory for our students that have visual impairments that might need more tactile symbols instead of just the regular pictures. And the nice thing about the tactile symbols inventory is it kind of creates a system where everybody's using the same tactile symbol for different words or concepts. And some concepts such as time or events that aren't your standard nouns are difficult to represent. So it gives you a visual. So for example, if you want to represent Tuesday, you would use a rubber band on a piece of cardboard to represent Tuesday. And then Jane Farrell provides some examples of how to use everyday objects around the home for literacy activities. So some examples, she's using clay. I'm just going to scroll down. Cookie cutters. She's got puzzle pieces down here. There's some Play-Doh stamps. And here she's using a paper plate with clothespins to match letters. And then down here, I have some more examples of using objects. Here is a choice board with objects. Here, the student has a picture schedule using objects to represent the different activities. Over here, same thing. We've got daily living, gym, going to the nurse. And this is an example of using the Texas School for the Blind's tactile symbols inventory to indicate yes or no. A sample activity using objects around the home. So for science, you can have the student predict if an item will sink or float. And you can represent the concept of sink or float using a cup with the words written on it, and then a demonstration of what sinking and floating would look like. And then before you put the items in the water, the student could either point to the object to represent what they predict, or they could eye gaze at their prediction before you put the item in the water to see what it will actually do. Some JCPS teacher examples of using objects. Our teachers at Churchill Park are using things such as puff paint on the doors to do art, or they're using paper plates and cups and bowls to do patterns. Teacher at Lure Elementary, Riley Pennerwood, uses WikiSticks for reading and writing, where they can create letters or trace letters or use the lines to keep up with where they're reading. It's like an underline each line while they're reading to keep their place. They can create or copy letters or create shapes. Over here, they're using objects to match the words to the objects. Using pictures or photographs, you can cut pictures from food boxes, soup cans, labels, from chips. You can cut pictures from magazines, newspapers, inserts, or coupons that you get in the mail to create picture boards. A sample life skills activity would using the sequence steps on the sides of boxes, such as the macaroni and cheese box, to help your adult make lunch. Another JCPS teacher example using magazines. Riley Pennerwood is using magazines to find letters, uppercase letters, and then they can work on their fine motor skills by cutting those letters out. You can create picture books using tabbed binders. You can attach pictures to key rings, or you can use a photo album and put pictures in a small portable photo album for the student. A sample social skills activity would be using the photo book to communicate with a friend things that you enjoy or places that you have been. And here we've got picture boards that you can create, and I'm going to share some free communication boards that you can download and print for families, or that you can show on your Google Meet and display so that you can model for students. Here they're just using a black baking tray for contrast while they have their pictures displayed. Over here, this is a picture communication board that they've downloaded, or you can just use a simple red X for a no response or a green check mark for a yes response. If a student has visual impairment, you can use black construction paper as well to provide contrast. You can also use a flashlight to point to the pictures to help highlight them if needed. So a sample transition readiness activity, you can have the student examine their lunch and ask them if they included fruits or vegetables, and they could respond yes or no on their picture board. You can have the caregiver give you choices, and they can tell you which fruits or vegetables they prefer for lunch or for dinner using their communication board. Here's an example of some teachers at Westport Middle using picture boards for morning routine to indicate the weather or the day of the week. Another teacher at Westport Middle is using picture supports to ask questions and then gives them a picture board to respond. And then you can also just use writing, have the student write the responses if they have the literacy skills using traditional pen or paper, using a chalkboard, or creating a dry erase board out of a picture frame. And you can just put a blank piece of paper in the picture frame and use dry erase markers to write on the picture frame. Sample activities using writing. They can write their sight words in chalk on the sidewalk. They can use pudding or whipped cream to fingerspell. And these are the resources I was referring to. So the MSD teachers with their News to You account, they have free access to symbol sticks. PracticalAAC.org has a website that has a lot of free activities and resources if you go to their AACE toolbox. The PRC AAC Language Lab has free resources as well. So if you go to the link and then you scroll down, they've got free lesson plans, free activities, and free resources. And under their free resources, they have things such as therapy materials, language charts, manual boards, tips and tricks, all great resources to use during NTI. PRC also has an implementation activities page, their literacy planner with the implementation activities, and they've got different months with activities. Saltillo Chat Corner has a free download and activities of their low-tech manual boards right here. Toby Dynabox has free low-tech boards. If a student is using a Dynabox and using the SNAC Core First vocabulary file, you can download the different vocabulary files here, so you have a low-tech version to model with. Board Maker activities to go. If you go over to their downloads, they have free activities. There's also some paid ones, but these are the free ones that you can just print and use. And then here's some sample boards from my Google Drive that you're welcome to use. So for example, this literacy board can be used with any literacy activity, so you don't have to make a communication board for each literacy activity. So instead of asking the student context specific things about the book, you could be more generic with your questioning and ask them, was the main character a boy or a girl, instead of asking them the main character's name. You can talk about setting by asking them, did the story take place outside or inside? Was it day or night? You can talk about the characters. Were they happy or sad? Was the book scary or funny? Did you like it or did you not like it? You can ask them yes, no questions. You can have them actively participate while you're reading by having them tell you when to turn the page. So this one communication board can be used with any book. And then on the next slide, I have all the additional resources, but due to time, I'm not going to go through those. And then here's another slide with additional resources as well. And this last one is a YouTube video showing how to model AAC using Google Meet during teletherapy or during your instruction. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Brian and stop sharing my screen.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Cindy. All right, let me get into here.
Oh, your screen looks a little frozen, Brian.
Yeah, hold on. It's trying to get the captions up to large, good, top. All right, can you see them now? Can captions coming through?
No, we're kind of stuck on like the beginning of your screen share real quick. Like it's just kind of frozen.
Let me stop and we'll start it.
No, we're back now, I think. You can go to your presentation now.
Good.
Let's see. As soon as you click on it, it freezes.
Of course.
If you want, I can just pull it up and present, and you can just follow along on yours if you want.
Yeah, maybe I can screen share from there.
Okay, yeah. Let me screen share mine real quick. Okay, here we go. Hopefully everybody can see that. And
right.
So what slide are you starting out on, Brian?
Just where it says other tech tools. I think it's let me escape out of mine, that way I can.
Oh, here I see it. 28. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Let me. I'm not gonna present that way. I can still move back and forth between the chat if I need to. So, closed captioning will be off. But on the if people go back and watch this on the like with the power pause, they can turn on their closed captioning that way. So.
All right. Okay. All right. Hold on. Something looked weird. All right. Thanks for sticking around for these last 15 minutes, almost 15 minutes we have for this other tools, so aptly named generically. What that really means is this other tools that I mean for built-in access for students to overcome barriers. So yeah, Matt, if you want to jump to the next screen, you can.
Yep.
So some disabilities, students who are identified, it's identifiable. It looks like this, or assessment, so on. But some look like the bottom picture there, and you don't know. And lots, just FYI, a lot of students with high incidence disabilities, such as a specific learning disability in reading and so on, or if they have an outside diagnosis of dyslexia, they don't really want to recognize as disability. And also in this day and age, these built-in accessibility tools, reason I even had a PD about this a few weeks back, and this one's kind of chopped down just to Chromebook, since that's what most students are going to have at home. I'm going to focus on that quickly and kind of chop some of the other stuff out. Bolted on is nice. It's so you don't have to have things added on or have things installed, other pieces added on to a device that a student needs in order to make it function for them, to make them more independent and more efficient to access the curriculum and access their life needs. But there are tools like Read Write, and I will mention that at the end because I love that. I'm so excited that GSSP for this has Read Write now for district. I've used that personally actually since 2006. Speaking of personally, I've even used it like to help myself write a paper before and gather resources. So it's a great tool. And also it looks like a quiz you me bought. I've been an advocate for that for about a couple of years, where I've showed some teachers to get their own thing, and you can have math read aloud. It's awesome. All right, so there's a variability. So even the students who have variability in their individual selves, doesn't mean necessarily have a disability, right? We all learn different. So in the screen that's on you see now, with multiple means of action expression, those are based off of CAS.org's UDL guidelines. So the why of learning, the what of learning, the how of learning. So especially important is many of these action and expression. So think about it right now. You're having students express in ways through video. There are these other little tools to show what they know to you. And likewise, you're actually doing more of the thing in the middle, the what of learning. And they are the why, right? Like we're talking about Dr. Polio saying, they know your why. Well, they are a why. And it made me think about all the students that, I've assisted in the past. And I thought of stories too. But it's about engaging and having that one-on-one with that student and having those good conversations. So both of those links there, actually that graphic is a link, and the top title is a link to take you to two different parts of that. You don't have to go to that right now. Explore that on your own, because you can get deep into a rabbit hole about all the different tools that actually CAS.org create to make EPUBs for free out of Word documents and so on. It's pretty neat stuff. So think about those students, though. If it's not a student with special abilities, it's all the way down to a struggling reader that may fall through the cracks, as we so often say. Well, what does that mean? There was an inequity in how we dealt with some students that may not have identified the disability, if it was hidden, so on, undiagnosed. But now we have to rise up together, right? General educators. So I love this graphic. I got this from another AT friend out in Virginia. These hard to swallow pills. Special educators can't do it alone. We always say, we collab, we do this team building thing, right? So nothing will change if you don't let general educators, involved. So what that means is outside of that collab, show them the tools that, if you've known me personally, or there's things that you know how to do and what to do, you all are awesome, amazing experts. And speaking to you, our special educators and general educators, both of you, seek each other out. If you know your students way better than I do anyway, when I come to your building, if I visit someday again, you'll know what they more likely need, because that's what I'm going to talk to you about, and tools that might help them get through their day and accomplish things. Let's see. Let's go here. So on the screen, I'll go through a couple of these slides, and then I don't know how this is going to work, Matt, just off the cuff, just because I wanted to share my Chromebook screen, but I don't think that's going to happen. Plus, we'll be short on time. But on these links, it'll specifically walk you through how to enable accessibility features. It's one of the things I went over in my PD a few weeks back. So there's some screenshots. And so Alt-Shift-S gets you into open the status tree, or you just click, everybody's got the Chromebooks, your students have the Chromebooks, click on that little clock where the little Wi-Fi symbol is, and you go to settings, you go to the little gear, and when you go to the gear, it puts you into your settings area of your Chromebook. Now, unlike Apple and Microsoft, I feel like Google Chrome kind of hid accessibility settings. So because you have to go to advanced. So once that screen opens up, you have to do advanced because accessibility doesn't sometimes show up. It shows up in the little screenshots there. And so you'll see the little man, the universal symbol for accessibility. And you can set the settings to where that always shows up. So all you have to do as a student or an individual is go in and click on that symbol and choose the accessibility settings that you need to operate on a Chromebook. Yeah. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Yeah. All right. So some of those are built-in Chromebook zoom and magnification, increasing the size of browser content, keys control plus. But what's really useful, especially students with some visual impairments, just need a little help. Okay. They're not diagnosed with visual impairment, just need it. Increase size of all items by using Control Shift plus, Control Shift minus, or like just mentioned up top, or 0 to reset. Control Shift 0 and resets everything to 100% view. Now, inside of that, then they can also use the Control minus, and same thing as when they go into the built-in full screen magnifier, which is next. So the full screen magnification, which I prefer over docked mode for magnification. That's annoying. So you go through the settings, and where I mentioned you'll find that little man, you'll find it says full screen magnifier, and you'll turn on the green check mark. Okay, your whole Chromebook screen will instantly go into full magnification, and you can either enable that full screen on or the docked one. And the docked one will take over the top, I'd say, third of your screen, and so anywhere you're hovering down below shows up in that top area. Some students, I've mentioned with visual impairments, do prefer that over top of the full screen. I think I prefer full screen magnification myself. Next, with you sharing so hard, you see those. So I mentioned high contrast mode as well, but I think I mentioned it here as also. You're fine, Matt, though, because we have lack of time. Here, very important, if you notice when I was sharing my screen possibly, I had a very large mouse cursor, and I did set to my window settings, but it is possible on the Chromebook as well. That's one of my number one asks throughout the year. They needed a big large cursor. I'm like, the Chromebook will do that. Mono audio next. It's for students with especially have specific hearing and loss in one ear over the other, and it sends all the channels through one specific ear. They can even be set up to go through some students' hearing impairment devices. Highlight mouse cursor. Again, if I had a chance to show my screen, you would have seen as I would have moved my mouse around, that anytime I moved it, that little red circle. Some of you are kind of familiar with that with kind of Screencastify type tools when you're recording, during NTI. So it does it so it's all the time. So you can always find where your mouse is moving. Of course, if you enlarge it, it's always pretty easy to find. Automatic clicks. I love this. I really wanted to show this one live to you. It puts a little floating toolbar that you can move around all four corners of your screen. And so what that does for students with physical impairments, say CP, so on, and they're operating, maybe they can't operate the trackpad either. Maybe they have an external mouse hooked up to their Chromebook. What they can do is tell it how they want to click, and they can slow the latency of the response time. So that way they have more time to move the mouse, and you can adjust that speed as well. But it adjusts to double click, left click, right click, and then also scrolling. There's a scroll button inside that tool, and when that's activated, that will allow them, so they don't have to use a mouse wheel. They don't have to go up and down and find that tiny scroll bar on the right-hand side of the screen. It puts a little kind of joystick on the screen, and they hover over that. And as long as they're hovering over that, it will move the screen up and down as long as there's something to go to. Sticky keys. I also tell this one constantly about, it also exists on Windows PC, shift key 5 times. If you turn that on, if the student say it has to do like a capital letter, they can hit the shift key. Within seconds, it's still active, and they hit the capital D, the letter D, it'll do a capital D. They don't have to hold down the shift. So again, with physical impairments, it helps students being able to access a keyboard because they can't hold down 2 keys possibly, especially if maybe they're a one-handed user. All right, next, Matt, please. That one's we already kind of discussed that. Show large mouse cursor, yeah, good. Speech to text, use it. I will say you have to coach, okay? Students do not get this right off the bat. So use those built-in Word, built-in Google Docs, tools for voice typing. The speech to text built in to read write just activates the Google Docs toolbar in voice typing. Next, real quick, so we can get to this. I really want to talk about this before we have to end here in about 2 minutes. No, go back one.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right. So in Chromebooks, you can do speech to text access. So what this tool in that accessibility setting, turn on dictation. And so it's different than voice typing. Anywhere that you can possibly type in a Chromebook, you can speak. So in a Google slide, yes, when the text. So this works on a Chromebook only. That when this is activated on a Chromebook, and what it does, it puts a little microphone in your bottom bar, just to the left of where your little clock and Wi-Fi symbol is that you're all familiar with. When that's activated, it makes a little beep sound, and you're speaking. It's just like using the voice typing in Google Docs and also through Read Write, but anywhere. Well, just like Read Write, we'll do that as well. But yes, so start dictation. There's also a shortcut, search D. As long as you have it activated, it'll turn it on. That way, many people love those keyboard shortcuts. We'll see what we have time for real quick. I just want to mention Read Write. All those tools, magnificent. I know Kathleen and Rebecca did a thing about 2 weeks ago. So that I have the playlist linked here that Textile provided. Just use it, please. The ability to type on PDFs is amazing. Even if they're not totally accessible and can't be read, you can use a screenshot reader tool to have any text read aloud for the student. So we're not there by their side to read to them. Next is just mention Equasio real quick. It'll be a tool that's be more known about in the coming time, I believe. Down to optical character recognition. I wanted them to show Office Lens. I'll probably plan for too much. There's other ways to do optical character recognition. The greatest thing I think is Microsoft Office Lens. I want to mention though on an iPad, because you can do it on an iPad or on a PC. And in that next slide, there'll be a link on a video of like how that works, just to better explain it. I use it on my Android device. You can create a PDF instantly or have it read through Microsoft's Immersive Reader. So it's a great tool for students, especially on our schools that have iPads. This tool works. They sign in with their JCPS ID, and they're instantly in to launch a document that they take a picture of an Immersive Reader. I know we're out of time. There's some other resources there to launch you into Chromebook accessibility resources, other features. I love their Teach from Anywhere. To go through some great tutorials for all G Suite tools, and also listed there the CAS.org UDL guidelines for your reading pleasure. I know we're out of time. I'll just say quickly, reach out to me anytime, me or Cindy Simpson at our emails, and we'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Brian. Sorry that we had to call an audible there and present from my screen. But this presentation is linked to the schedule, so you all in the chat can go back and watch this later today or whenever you need to, and you can also click on that that slide there, and it'll take you to all those resources that Brian and Cindy linked in, and they are awesome resources. And we love, Digital Innovation Team has gotten to work with Brian and Cindy pretty frequently, and we love every opportunity we have to work with them. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. Goes both ways. Thank you.
Thanks. Hope you all have a great weekend.
You too.
You too.
Thanks. Bye. All right, everybody. It is 10:02, so very quickly, let's go ahead and look at our schedule. Coming up next, we have Gifted Services in NTI with Jesse Thompson and Jenny Stith. So it looks like we have Jesse in here with us. How are you?
I'm good. Jenny's actually unavailable today. She's doing a PD at a school, so it's just me.
All right. Well, the floor is all yours. Sorry, we're about 2 minutes into your presentation, but go ahead and share your screen whenever you're ready.
Alrighty then.
And while we're getting that ready, everybody in the chat, I am currently linking in our schedule for the day. And if you have any questions, please let us know. And also, let us know where you're from and what you teach.
All right. Are you seeing it up there on your screen?
Yep, we see it.
Awesome. Okay, so my first presentation today, I've actually got two. They're back to back. The first one is just talking about providing services during this NTI 2.0 time. So that's what we're going to jump into. I found this quote to be quite meaningful for our kiddos. Online learning presents opportunity for gifted students to shine. And that's coming from the National Gifted Council. And online learning is really a perfect opportunity for our kiddos to have that ability to really show what they know. And it's actually giving them quite a bit of latitude. Instead of just being in that brick and mortar classroom, we are able to give them enrichment opportunities, differentiation activities that we might not be able to do in the classroom as easily because we are in this virtual setting.
Jesse, do you mind to hit present there and turn on your closed captions while you're going through your slides?
Oh, okay.
And then just hit that white box where you hit hide on it. And then, do you know how to turn closed captions on?
I can't remember.
Just click where it says CC right there. To your right a little bit.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. And then hit allow. And then will you click on the arrow right next to CC? And go to text size and make it large, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So a lot of you are asking, what can we do right now since we're going to be in the virtual setting for at least the first 6 weeks of school? So the biggest things that you can do is provide spaces to foster growth. We still need to make sure we're following the GSSP for all of our gifted kiddos. We still need to make sure that they're receiving those services. So as a teacher, being able to provide those spaces virtually is very, very important. We also want to promote positive social interactions. Again, it's different when it's in that virtual setting, but if you're doing a Google Classroom activity or if you're doing a Google Meet and you have that chance for those kiddos to interact with one another, having them go through those social emotional lessons like a lot of our gifted kiddos need is very important at this time. Talking with your guidance counselor about recommendations when it comes to the social emotional learning, talking to one of the gifted teachers about social emotional learning is going to be imperative in this time because our kiddos internalize a lot. They are exceedingly intelligent and they may not always let you know when they need that positive social interaction. Another thing that you can do is collaborate with one another, whether it's a GT itinerant teacher, whether it's Miss Jenny, whether it's myself, or whether it's just within your own school building. Talk to one another. What are they doing to enrich those students in the classroom on a daily basis? Of course, we need to continue to have an open line of communication with our parents, with our administration, with the GT department. If you need something, reach out. We will do the best we can to make sure you have everything you need in order to make this a successful time. I mentioned earlier to make sure that you are following the GSSP. That is very important. We need to make sure that those kiddos are receiving the services that are documented on the GSSP. The biggest one I think right now is the remain flexible and breathe. This is uncharted territory for all of us. We did it in the spring, but of course it was a little bit different in the spring. Let's be honest, we survived in the spring. And that was nationwide. It wasn't just JCPS. I'm coming from a district in Florida, the 7th largest in the nation, actually. And we were doing pretty much the exact same things you guys were doing in the spring. But we've got our feet under us now. And we know that we can follow that GSSP. We know that we can foster the growth and have those social interactions. But you do need to remember to breathe. This is it's a difficult time. It's not what we're used to. We did not learn how to do this in school. So I just need you to take a moment and breathe. And again, if you need anything, open line of communication, reach out to the GT department. We will do whatever we can for you. So there are multiple service delivery models that are available on the GSSP. But after speaking with KDE, some other gifted coordinators around the state, and even speaking with my team here at JCPS, we are recommending these service models to use during the NTI setting. They are not required, but we are recommending because they are easily switched from the NTI setting to the brick and mortar setting if and when we return. So again, these are not required service delivery models, but these are our recommendations coming from KDE, coming from the GT department here at JCPS. Collaboration is wonderful if you have the ability to have a gifted teacher who can provide those direct services in a gen ed classroom. That might be your gifted itinerant teacher. That might be somebody at your school who is designated at providing those gifted services for your gifted students. So collaboration is just where the gifted teacher works with a general education teacher. They talk about the lesson for the week and the gifted teacher decides, okay, what can I bring in to enhance that general education? What might be able to be used in place of a general education activity that'll address those GSSPs. Another one that's going to work fantastically during this NTI setting, and if we're back in the brick and mortar setting, is consultation. Consultation and collaboration are closely related, but they are not the same thing. Consultation would be if the general education teacher is speaking to a gifted teacher, whether it's one from the GT department or if it's one that you do have at your school site. And through consultation, the gifted teacher is providing resources for the general education teacher to use in those classroom lessons. That's when the choice boards can come into play. That's when project-based learning can come into play. That's when differentiation can come into play. So consultation can be a great tool to use if you do not have a gifted itinerant teacher or gifted teacher permanently assigned to you. You can consult with one of us and we can provide materials for you to use in your daily lesson. Another one that I know a lot of you guys are doing outside of NTI is enrichment services. Sometimes enrichment services can be after school. Obviously, right now, that is not what we are talking about, since we aren't really doing after school activities, since we are not in the brick and mortar setting. But you can still provide those enrichment services during the school day. And it might be where, again, the gifted itinerant teacher or even the general education teacher has a differentiated academically based activity that can supplement the classroom instruction during the school day. Sometimes we look at enrichment services as being those after school clubs. Again, I know we're not doing those right now. I was speaking with Mr. Nolan and his team yesterday with Leader and Me, and they are ready to go. They are ready to provide those enrichment services during this NTI setting. So if you are a Leader in Me school, look for Nolan to be reaching out to you so that we can make sure that we are providing those enrichment services. If you are not a Leader in Me school, no worries. Again, you can reach out to the GT department and we can provide some of those services for you. Another big one that works beautifully in the NTI setting, but also in the brick and mortar setting, is independent study. A lot of the times we think of this as research. If a kiddo is very interested in global warming, for example, they might want to do an independent study lesson on global warming where they are learning how to research and go through that process and find a way to help improve global warming. Of course, that's just an example. And then the last one that I have listed is differentiation. Differentiation is just an educational experience. So it can be a lesson, it can be an activity, it can be a project that's going to extend or supplement learning beyond the standard curriculum. So if you have a kiddo who has already mastered a math standard, you can provide differentiated activities, whether you're using Khan Academy, whether you're using a project-based learning lesson, whether you're using one of the choice boards that we have available for you. That's how you can provide differentiation. So you can see some of these services go hand in hand with one another. You do have to make sure you're providing at least 2 services on the GSSP, so not all of these have to be selected. But when you're thinking about your students and you have your individual who's doing your coding and doing the GSSP for this year, think about what service models can work in both NTI and the general education setting. Of course, there are more. If you are in middle school or high school and you've got those advanced and honors classes, those are on the GSSP. Those are absolutely acceptable to use during the NTI time. If you are in elementary and they are an advanced program, please do not mark advanced placement / honors on their GSSP. That is for middle school and high school only. If you're in the elementary setting, you're going to want to look at some of these recommendations when it comes to the service delivery models. We have lots of resources for you guys. One of them is the CAGE Virtual Gifted and Talented Enrichment Support Materials. So I'm going to exit for just a second so I can pull that up and show it to you. This is a fabulous document that is from the Kentucky Association for Gifted Education. We work very closely with them. You can see that it's broken up by grade level. You've got your primary, your intermediate, your middle school, and your high school, and then appropriate for K through 12. These are links to activities that you can use in the virtual setting or in the brick and mortar setting for critical thinking, multidisciplinary resources, creativity, leadership, visual arts, drama, dance, music, language arts, math, science, social studies. I know I'm going through this quickly, but it is linked in my Google Slides presentation, so you will be able to access all of these different kinds of activities. One of the other one I had was the CAGE online resources. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. Through this, again, it's through the CAGE Association, but all of this is free. You do not have to be a member. They've got various webinars that you can watch. I've watched quite a few of them already myself in order to make sure that we are doing what we need for our kiddos. NAGC, the National Association for Gifted Children, tons of resources linked through here. You have general and multiple areas. That social emotional support I was talking about earlier. I watched this YouTube video, Coping with Stress for COVID-19 Tips for Families with Gifted Children, and I'm actually having it put in the parent toolkit. Fabulous video for everyone to be watching right now to make sure that we are meeting those social emotional needs. So that was one of the other links that I had. The NAGC resources, the National Association for Gifted Children, is a wonderful place to go. Within it, you have, again, various links curated by state departments of education and state affiliates. You've got some new toys and games for gifted kiddos. So if you know that they need a little break, but they still need that enrichment opportunity, you can click on that link. You've got various other states who have, CAGE included, Kentucky included, who have published some items that allow students to have freedom of choice, that give you those resources that they can use in real time. And then the last one is the KDE resource booklet. This is a fabulous document. It is a Word document, so it's linked on the Google Slides, but once you open it, there are gifted and talented sample activities. It goes from K through 6, so our rest of our middle school and our high schools, they do not have materials on here yet, not to say that they won't, but you can see there's various for first grade, operations and algebraic thinking, for second grade, equal grouping. There are gifted lessons on here that you can pull. They are ready to use. You just have to make some modifications for your students. Share. Sorry, it's taking a minute to load for share. Oh, that is not what I meant to do. I'm sorry. Present. There we go. All right, so my next slide.
Oh, you just need to put captions back on really quick. Sorry, Jessie.
Oh, sorry. Hopefully by the time I do this the next time around, we'll be good to go. We do have the district provided choice boards that were in the spring. We had come up with multiple choice boards. They are done by weeks. So there are 7 weeks from the spring. So you are able to still access those via the link that I have in the Google Slides. There's 4 categories. You've got your primary talent pool, your 4th through 5th graders, your 6th through 8th, and your 9th through 12th. Some of you are probably very familiar with that. It is not a subject specific choice board. It is a culmination of the various giftedness that a student can be, and it provides activities for your kiddos to use. We also, on our JCPS gifted website, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, we've got choice boards loaded up there. Those are more subject specific. So if you are looking specifically for a math choice board, there is a plethora of activities for you to do with your students. Project-based learning is a big thing that can be used both in NTI and in the brick and mortar setting. For those of you unfamiliar with project-based learning, it always begins with the end in mind. You begin with an actual product that the students are going to present, and it's not just a poster. I had a student last year who his project was to make a blueprint and have everything planned out for a water park. That included how much it would cost to run it, how much water he would need in an infinite swimming pool, in a lazy river, how the actual slides water slides would be built and all of the mechanics that would go behind that. So it always starts with that driving question. His driving question was dealing with volume. And it was not just your regular rectangular prism volumes. He had to figure it out for irregular shapes and how he would calculate that volume. It's not just a busy project. Again, it's not, okay, you're just going to present a poster or you're going to do a PowerPoint or a Google slide at the end. That could be the project at the end if they're going to use it as a presentation style tool. It allows for collaboration among many students if you do it as a group setting. It can be done individually. It can be done within a group. It also covers creativity, leadership, and can cover those visual and performing arts if you have that component built in. One of the things that one of my third grade teachers down in Florida was doing in the spring, she does a Titanic unit every year. And she continued to do that Titanic unit even in the virtual setting. She had some students who were more on the VPA side of the giftedness. They were composing music to go along with the presentations that their group was presenting. So project-based learning is a perfect opportunity in the NTI setting and in the brick and mortar setting. On the digital learning channel, we do have our gifted playlist, and there have been some videos that were uploaded last spring, but we are going to be looking specifically at NTI 2.0 in our upcoming sessions. We do not have a set schedule for that yet, but we've got Miss Jenny doing creativity and creative and critical thinking. She will be giving you ideas and resources in order to use right now in that NTO 2.0 setting. It's sort of going to kind of be like a grab and go. She's going to have resources. She's going to have links. Same thing with Miss Lindsay in leadership. She's going to give you ideas. She's going to give you activities and lessons and links so that you can make sure that our leadership goals are being met in the NTI setting. Miss Nayetta is doing our GIA and SAA activities. So for our generally intellectual aptitude and our specific academic aptitude students, if they're specifically math, if they're specifically science, or if they're just our general intellectual aptitude students, she's going to have activities and ideas for those. Miss Christie is going to be going through using choice boards effectively in the NTI setting, and of course can be used outside of the NTI setting, but she's going to talk about how to implement those seamlessly and flawlessly within your classroom setting. And Miss Tiffany is going to be talking about how you can support your primary talent pool students. I know that we're all worried about identification right now. And we shared with the principals, and I'll share with the teachers also, we don't know what identification for our GII and SSA is going to look like yet, because we don't know how the COGAT is going to be administered. We are in contact with KDE. We are talking with them, trying to figure out what that is going to look like if we continue in this virtual setting. But the more positive spin of all this is creativity and leadership can easily be identified during the NTI setting. And Miss Jenny and Miss Lindsay are going to be talking about that a little bit more when they do their digital learning channel. But it is a perfect opportunity because you're going to see that creativity and critical thinking come out in the virtual setting. You're going to see those leadership skills come out in a virtual setting. And because they do not require a standardized cognitive test, we can go ahead and start looking at identification with those right now. So in summary, and then I'm going to show you some different links, I've gone over the recommended service delivery models. Again, they are not required. They're just the service models that KDE and our team has seen that can work between the NTI setting and when we switch to the brick and mortar setting, because we don't want you to have to redo the GSSP if and when we return to the brick and mortar setting. We want to make sure that there are service delivery models that fit both pieces. There are plenty of enrichment activities that are available to you, and they are going to be linked through this slide. And I'm going to show you in a little bit the various ones that we have. Choice boards are going to be a big one. whether you're using the pre-done ones from the spring or you're using ones from the Gifted website where they are more subject specific. If you are trained and you are knowledgeable in project-based learning, I highly suggest you try to incorporate that in this NTI setting. It works beautifully. The kiddos pretty much drive the bus. You're there to facilitate. You provide the initial project, the initial guided question, but from there, they are figuring out how they are going to work through this project and how they are going to, in the end, present their materials. I'm going to show you the GCPS Gifted website in just a little bit. We have updated it. There are quite a few things on there to use during the NTI setting. This is going to be one of our go-tos when it comes to supplying you with information, supplying you with materials. So if you get this link, go ahead and bookmark it because it's going to have a lot of resources for you uploaded throughout these next couple of weeks. Of course, there's the Teacher's Backpack for Success. Couldn't forget that, Ms. Coleman. We do have one for Gifted and Talented this year with, again, various links, identification links, resources when it comes to how am I going to teach my kiddos right now? What can I grab and go? What can I take with me so that I can tailor their instruction to meet their needs? And then I've also come up with additional links and resources in a Google Doc, which I'll be sharing in just a few minutes so that you have that. And again, it's a link where you can just click it and you can find resources and you can go from there. So looking at the Gifted and Talented, these were the choice boards that were supplied in the spring. So they're broken up, again, primary talent pool, grades 4 to 5, grades 6 through 8, grades 9 through 12. So if I just click grades 4 through 5, for example, it's going to show you choice board week 1, choice board week 2. You can pull these and you can start using them immediately. So when we click choice board week 1, again, this is just the example for grades 4 through 5. You've got interdisciplinary, you've got social studies, math, science, you've got origami and science, so some of our VPA kiddos, math, room redesign, ELA, design a yearbook, ELA, bio poem, language and creative art, you've got leadership, visual and performing arts. So that's what all of the choice boards from the spring are going to look like. With our Teacher's Backpack, we do have our Gifted and Talented Teacher's Backpack link. Sorry, it's taking a minute to load. There we go. So huge section on identification. Now, again, with the GIA and with the SAA, we are waiting to figure out what we're going to do about the COGAT, but there's visual and performing arts, there's leadership, there's creativity. This whole side talks about the GSSP, enrichment resources, various guiding resources. With the curriculum and instruction, we've got, of course, the frameworks and the curriculum frameworks and instructional frameworks, but I've also listed here the KDE talent links of interest, resources, differentiation, so that you have that at your availability. Here is our JCPS Gifted and Talented website that Ms. Jenny has been working so hard on all summer. You've got the living calendar. This is where we'll put important dates, whether we have upcoming trainings, whether we have identification that needs to be happening. Coding did start back on August 1st. So if anybody on here is in charge of coding, you are able to code your students that you identified in the spring. It does need to be done before September 30th. There are 2 trainings on PD Central coming up regarding coding. So if you need a refresher or if you're new to this and you don't know how to do coding, look for those trainings. Opportunities for gifted students. The Young Women Lead Conference that was sent to us from CAGE, that is an opportunity for students to do outside of the school offering, but again, still fabulous in the area of leadership. We have frequently asked questions, resources for GT teachers, general resources. If you need the program coordinator's manual, it's also uploaded on here. We also have tabs at the top that specifically talks about the different types of giftedness. And within each one of those tabs, there are resources that are specific to that giftedness. Here's the SSA one, for example. You have Miss Nayetta's spring presentation. You can always watch that on how does she serve her SAA students. You evidence resources, Gifted Guru, he is fantastic. He's got a lot of stuff that can help you in this NTI setting. And of course, if we return to brick and mortar, specific choice boards, Padlet teacher resources, project-based learning, Khan Academy, all of those are on our website. Here also is linked. These are the choice boards that I was speaking about when it comes to, I clicked the link before we started, specifically from the GCPS gifted and talented website. Again, they are subject specific. So you can pick middle school choice boards, and you've got some activities there for the students to do. You've got science choice boards, math, and then down at the bottom, you've got some tic-tac-toe options. You've got various options that you are able to access in this Google Drive. And the last one that I wanted to show was the various links that we have been compiling to help teachers. If you want to look at virtual field trips or tours, multiple links for you to use. If you want to see certain videos that are student appropriate that you might use for your learning, Watch, Know, Learn, fabulous. Common Sense Media, fabulous. Lots of videos that can start the conversations with your students. The crash course is specific for high school, but it's fantastic for your high school students. Middle school, you might be able to find some activities that you can do there also. We've linked some ELA articles. So if you want to have a Socratic seminar going on with your students in the virtual setting, here are some articles that are vetted, that are easy to use, that you can have them reading them and then having a Socratic seminar. Nearpod, I know a lot of you are familiar with Nearpod, Flipgrid, Padlet, direct links for those. Powtoon, I love Powtoon. It's a presentation style that students use, but it's in a cartoon setting, and they're able to have their little avatars, they're able to have their backgrounds and present their information at the same time. Pear Duck, another one that links directly to Google Slides, is another fabulous way that if you want them to be presenting their information in a different and creative way, those are available for you. And then I just have other useful links. There's a plethora of them. This first one, the Georgia Standards of Frameworks, it is specifically made for gifted students, and they go from K through 12. So there are lessons on there that you can pick, tailor to your students, and run with it. Makerspace is great for the primary talent pool. I'm sure Miss Tiffany's going to be talking about that when she does hers, but Makerspace is one that will work great for primary talent pool or any of our gifted students. The gifted guy I have next to, tons of resources and plans. I'm a huge fan of the gifted guy, clearly. But again, if you need something that just is pretty much a grab and go, the GT Links is going to be a fabulous link for you. So going to my last slide. And then my last slide, let me turn captions on real quick. My last slide is just giving my information. If you have any questions, please email. We are here to help. I've already showed you the JCPS GT website, which again, that's where a lot of our information is going to be put up. The NTI 2.0 links and resources, it's just a culmination of the links that I've shown throughout the slides. So if you want to just go straight to all the different resources that I had referred to, you can click that NTI 2.0, it'll open in a Google Doc and it'll have all those links for you. Or if you're looking for a specific link, you can go back through the slides and you're able to click all of those links. So I went a minute over.
It's fine because you have the next session as well. So it's your own time.
I have the next session. So that was just a quick overview of how we can serve our students in the NTI setting and the recommended GSSP service delivery options. Again, they are not required, but we found that those are going to be the ones that move seamlessly from the NTI setting to the brick and mortar setting. Hopefully we will return to the brick and mortar setting, but they will flow beautifully between the two. All right, so then I'll get my next one up and ready. Awesome. Do we have any questions that we wanted to cover before?
No, I was wondering if you could actually share both of your presentations with me. That way I could link them into our daily schedule.
Yes. I'll get this next one up and going, and then I will share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
And so our next one is going to be now more specifically, now that I know those recommended service delivery models, what can I do? So we've got GSSP service delivery models during NTI 2.0, again with myself, Jessie Thompson. So just to recap, the GSSP is the Gifted Student Service Plan. This is the communication vehicle between the school and the parent. This is where you're going to have how the student is identified, and they can be identified in more than one area. But this is telling the teacher and the student and the parent, okay, your child is identified gifted in leadership. It's also going to be where those service delivery options are marked for the student. And that's what we're going to talk about, is how can I serve those students? It links your gifted identification to those differentiated service options. Parents are presented with this twice a year. Usually we present it during the conference night. Conference day, I'm sorry. I'm not really going to know how that's going to look yet, whether we're going to still be in the NTI setting or whether we're going to be in the virtual setting. But we are going to be able to still distribute those GSSPs. We are also looking at having them added straight to Infinite Campus instead of going through SAS, so parents themselves can log into Infinite Campus and look up the GSSP so they don't always have to have that paper copy in front of them. So now that we've talked about the different service delivery models, the ones that you can use and the ones that are most conducive, what are we going to do? Now we're going to look at the available resources more in depth. So here are all of the gifted service options that are available on the GSSP.
We're not seeing anything right now.
Oh.
Yep,
okay.
You got to share your screen again for us. Thanks, Jessie.
Let's try this again. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Oh, and I think we may have lost her for a minute.
Yeah, it says it's loading, hopefully. Yep. There we go.
Okay, we can see it now. Yay.
Oh, awesome. Let me turn my closed captions. There we go. Sorry, do you want me to go back and do the previous slides real quick?
Yeah, that's fine.
The biggest slide you missed was just, again, talking about the GSSP, the 5 identifications, how you could be identified in more than one area. But our GSSP is really that communication vehicle between school and parent. So these are all of the gifted service delivery options that are available on the GSSP. You can continue to use acceleration in the NTI setting if it's something that you are comfortable with and it's something that you know you can reach your students with during the NTI setting. Cluster grouping, if your school is already doing that and they have mastered it and they did it in the spring, that is another option. It's just not bolded because not all schools are trained in using the cluster grouping. But if you've been using that and it's been successful for you and you want to continue to use it during the NTI setting, it's absolutely appropriate. The ones that are highlighted are the ones that I talked about in my previous session, which we're going to look more in depth at in just a few moments. Distance learning. It's funny because you think, oh, well, I should be able to mark distance learning because we're in the NTI setting. But distance learning is a true separate component from the NTI setting when it comes to the GSSP. That would be if you are using a program that is specifically from a university or specifically from a company that is for gifted services. So a lot of the times, people think, oh, NTI means distance learning, but it's a different program than what we're doing. Counseling is going to be a little more difficult to do in the NTI setting. If you do have a guidance counselor that is meeting with gifted student groups on a regular basis, and that is something that they are able to mark on the GSSP, then that is acceptable. But I know a lot of our guidance counselors, they are overloaded and they probably don't even have those groups set up. Curriculum compacting is very similar to cluster grouping. If your school was already doing it and you know that you're efficient in it, it can work in the NTI setting, but it's not something that every school is doing. So it wasn't one that was bolded and highlighted. The ones that are bolded and highlighted are ones that every school can do. You don't have to have specific training like cluster grouping or curriculum compacting. Of course, travel study, not something we're able to do right now during this NTI setting, but that is something that the high schoolers could possibly look at. I have linked with the service delivery models the true explanation of each one if you want to go through it and see if it's going to work for you and your school during the NTI setting. Because again, you don't have to use the ones that are bolded. These are just the ones that we are recommending based on what's going to work best for all schools and what can be switched between NTI and brick and mortar. So collaboration and consultation, what is it? I spoke a little bit previously about what collaboration and consultation is. They can go hand in hand, but they do not have to. Collaboration is going to be if you have a certified gifted education teacher who is able to provide differentiated direct instruction to that regular classroom setting. And it's going to be a cluster group of your identified gifted students. And that person is going to have to be working continuously with the general education student. For our GT itinerant teachers, this is a little bit more difficult in the NTI setting because some of them have up to 70 teachers. So if collaboration doesn't work for you, if you don't have a gifted identified teacher who is certified, who can provide that direct instruction, consultation is going to be a better bet for you. This is where you are consulting with the gifted teacher. So it might be where you're receiving a choice board from either myself, Miss Jenny, or one of my GT itinerant teachers, and the general education teacher is building that into the general education classroom. So the gifted student might have an option. You can do this assignment, or I've got this assignment, which you've consulted with the GT team about, and it's something that can be used in place of. One thing that I spoke with principals about, and I've reiterated quite a few times, is gifted work isn't more work, it's different work. So if as a general education teacher, you are seeing a student who has mastered all of his or her standards, then you are able to provide those enrichment activities. It shouldn't just be an extra worksheet or the student tutoring another student. It should be a meaningful activity that student can take and run with and provides them with additional opportunities to show what they know. So how am I going to do collaboration and or consultation if that's what I pick? So collaboration and or consultation with the school or district GT specialist, that could be your itinerant teacher, that could be Miss Jenny, the instructional coach, and or myself, the gifted and talented supervisor. It's going to be a way for you to meet the needs of your students. If you are doing collaboration, common planning needs to occur because they are working hand in hand. It's not quite a co-teach, but it's similar to a co-teach where you might have your GT teacher pull a small group during a Google Classroom or doing a Google Meet, and she might pull her gifted students, they might pull their gifted students into a separate chat room or a separate room and provide services that go along with that general education curriculum. Consultation and or collaboration with the GC specialist. So again, it could be myself, it could be the itinerant teacher, it could be somebody on staff who is gifted certified, it could be Miss Jenny. It's essential and it should be encouraged so that we can meet student needs. So that's with collaboration and consultation. So for differentiation and enrichment services, differentiation is just a method through which educators shall establish a specific, well thought out match between learner characteristics in terms of abilities, interests, and needs, and curriculum opportunities in terms of enrichment and acceleration options, which maximize learning experiences. You guys do differentiation in the general education classroom, whether you have gifted students, ECE students, you're doing it already. It's just making sure that if you're doing differentiation for our gifted students, making sure that it's following that GSSP and that you're providing them a meaningful lesson that is going to work with their gifted characteristics. Enrichment services, when you look at the definitions, you're like, well, what's the difference between enrichment and differentiation? So when we look at enrichment services, they're differentiated. academically based activities that supplement classroom instruction during the school day. Not extracurricular right now because we don't really have that ability. Typically, they're designed as an added feature of a school schedule where students meet with teachers to engage in learning experiences beyond the core curriculum. This might be your Leader in Me program. This might be if you have a GT teacher who can do pull out in the virtual model for right now. It's just a different activity for those students to do and be able to learn. Differentiation in a virtual setting, it just means that students are assigned into small groups with a larger virtual classroom for assignments or content instruction through virtual means. Common Lit, ReadWorks, Khan Academy, all of those can be allowed to, which can be used to allow teachers to assign online work that can be done independently. Many of you are familiar with Khan Academy. You can set up a specific lesson if they've already mastered the basics of fractions and they need to go beyond that. Maybe they know how to add and subtract fractions with common denominators and that's your standard, but they're past that. You can assign a Khan Academy lesson or another lesson in order to allow those students to continue working within that fraction standard, but truly having them understand the concept and go beyond it. There is a link down at the bottom. It is from the CAGE website. It's our considerations for best practices for gifted and talented educational services upon reopening. It breaks down what certain service models can look like in the NTI setting and what they can look like in a of consultation going on and enrichment going on. Those two could both be marked on the GSSP. Enrichment menus, which support current classroom instruction, so those might be some of the choice boards that I shared with you previously, which are based on a general standard or that are topic specific, could be created. If you find one and you've vetted it and you want to use it, you are more than welcome to use those various enrichment menus. Rubrics should always be included. That also goes with project-based learning. That goes with most of the activities that we're doing with our students. They need to know what they're expected and how they're going to be graded so they can make sure they've got all of those components. The GT specialists could also offer virtual enrichment via Zoom. If you've got somebody who is GT certified and they are attached to your Google Classroom and you'd like them to do a Zoom activity or Google Classroom or Google Meets, then you can use those individuals in that manner. Like I stated before, enrichment opportunities and really any gifted opportunities should be in place of other classroom tasks, not in addition to. It's not more work, it's different work. So some links that I have down there at the bottom are specific for enrichment activities if you're looking for something when it comes to critical thinking, teach thought, learning, lifelong learning. The kids should see this. Those are all valuable links that if you need ready to go enrichment activities with your students, with your GT students, you can click those links and you can go with them. The GT links I had shown previously, and it's that plethora of virtual field trips, videos, ELA articles. It's grab and go. If you need something, go to one of those links. Independent study, beautiful for NTI, beautiful for in the classroom setting, especially if you're in the brick and mortar setting and you have a pull-out model for your gifted resource, this can be a fabulous time for them to use independent study. Since you don't have to have somebody truly pull them out during NTI, independent study can fuse beautifully with what you're doing. It's a self-directed course or study of a selected topic under the supervision of a teacher, and that would be the general education teacher or the auspices of a university. That's going to be more for your high school setting, not necessarily your elementary and your middle school setting. But independent study can be used K through 12. Quality independent study should reflect on a student-based problem to be solved. That's where your problem-based learning versus project-based learning can come into play. Again, it's a content-related question that needs to be answered, or it's a pursuit of interest for the child. If you've got a VPA student and they are interested in learning about the history of art and they want to look at a specific time period, this is when independent study can fuse beautifully into your your setting. The biggest thing is the kids need to know how to research. So if your students don't know how to research, you can start with, okay, these are the correct research steps. This is what we do when we're researching. Here is how we're going to be checking to make sure that we're following those steps. You can preload that with them, teach them how to do the research, and then they can work on an independent study activity. We used to use what's called IIM, Independent Investigative Method. It is a research-based 7-step research process where it outlines for students, okay, how do I come up with my guiding question? How do I establish goals? How do I write questions to answer during my research? How do I present my information? So if you need more information on that, reach out to me. I've got the books for that. I've got all the resources for that. And it's something that you have to teach the kiddos how to research in the beginning, but once they know how to do that, once you spend that time, then you can give them an independent study activity and they are able to work through that. I've linked Global Cognition and Research Project Guide. If you don't want to use IIM, the Research Project Guide, again, it lays everything out for you and for the student so that they can do a true independent study lesson. Other resources that I've linked, again, the Gifted website, always going to go back to that. Our teacher backpack, always going to go back to that. The NTI 2.0 links that I shared in the previous slide, and we'll look at those in just a second, and then the GT links, which I've shared also. All of those resources are for your disposal. They're all tailored to be a grab and go. You don't have to sit through a lesson. You don't have to watch a video. It's something that you can grab, you can take it, tailor it towards your students specifically, and use in this NTI setting. The biggest thing is you've got this. If you have any questions, please reach out to myself. If Miss Jenny is at one of your schools, if Miss Tiffany, if Miss Lindsay, if Miss Christy, if Miss Nayetta, if any of them are at your schools, you can obviously reach out to them also. We are going to get through this. This is going to be a very successful time for us. As stated in my previous presentation, NTI, the virtual setting, is truly a blessing for our students because they now have the latitude to find different ways to learn. There's so many resources out there. And I'm trying not to overwhelm you guys with them, but there's so many resources out there that you can use that can help in that virtual setting. So going back to, I'm going to show you this real quick. This is the one from the previous slide, from my previous presentation, where it had everything ready to go. So if you need the JCPS Gifted and Talented website, if you need that playlist, if you need the KDE resource book, the CAGE resources, those, again, they're all linked, ready to go. I did include the PBL Works Project-Based Lessons website. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it has, I call them skeleton lessons, where you can find a project-based lesson and it's got the basic outline of it. And of course you tailor it towards your students, but it gives you a good starting point. The planning template for project-based learning is also fabulous. If you're familiar with project-based learning, you've probably seen that there's many templates out there. This is just one in particular that I chose to highlight because it talks about the steps that the student has to go through. So that's pretty much what I've got for that. I know we've got a few minutes left, so if there's any questions, but I do highly recommend that you go to those links, and I'm gonna send that right now over your way so that you have them. We are here for you. That's the biggest thing. And that's what I want teachers to understand. That's what we conveyed to administration when Dr. Edelman, Miss Jenny, and myself all worked together on that. We want you to know that we're here for you. If you need something, please email us. There's lots of resources out there that I have not covered, that I have not gone over yet. And I want you to have that opportunity. And we want to make it easier for you, to be completely honest. We're in unprecedented times. It's very difficult right now trying to balance school, trying to balance home, trying to balance all of that. And we understand that. So we want to be that resource for you so that you are able to successfully and with as least amount of stress, we all know it's going to be stressful, but with as least amount of stress as possible to allow you that opportunity to truly reach your gifted students. All right, I'm getting ready to share this with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And my email is just matthew.bulka@Jefferson.
Okay.
All right, so while Jesse is sharing with us, let's go ahead and take a look at our schedule for today. So Jesse just got done with gifted services in NTI and GSSP service delivery models during NTI, and we will get both of those linked up as soon as we can. Coming up next at 11 o'clock, we have 2 sessions left before lunch. We have meeting the needs of ELs, and we have homeless student support. And those are both going to be very important sessions, so thank you for tuning in today. You will notice that we have our digital innovation leader, Russ Hockenberry, in the chat with us this morning. So please let us know if you have any questions, and also let us know what school you're from, what you teach, and how we can help out throughout these sessions. Additionally, remember, you can follow us on Twitter to keep following along. So at JCPSDigIn is our digital innovation Twitter page. And you can tweet at us to the hashtag JCPSDigIn. So you can see Tim Brown, one of our high school digital innovation leaders. He is at, what high school is he at? Dawes High School. Was tweeting earlier about the sync between Google Classroom and Infinite Campus. All of these videos that we've talked about today, you can see another one, Kathleen Receiver, the Google Classroom Infinite Campus sync. All these videos can be found on our JCPS Digital Learning page. So if we go back to the channel here, which is where you are now, you can see that we are live. If you hit subscribe, then it'll notify you every time we go live or every time we post a new video. And when we go to playlists, you can see that we have the Teacher NTI 2.0 playlist. We have an AIS support playlist. We have Family and Community playlist. We also have a Principal playlist and ECE playlist on here. So all of these videos can be found there. I will be spending my afternoon, probably after 1 o'clock or so, breaking up our 30-minute sessions from this morning and posting them to the channel so you can go back and have the power of pause to watch those videos. Also, I'm hoping I can find what I'm looking for on here. One of our new digital innovation leaders, Rebecca Reynolds, posted yesterday about Yes Cards, so I'm hoping we can find some of those here. Scrolling past some awesome Medora folks. Later this afternoon, we're having a session on school CNXT. I'm not sure how to say that, maybe Connect. And so that will be this afternoon with Kyle Chandler. I know a lot of schools use that to communicate with families, so definitely tune in for that. I'm still scrolling, trying to find what I am looking for, but I'm not seeing it on here. No. I know she tweeted it yesterday. Anyway, I'll find it while we're waiting, and I'll get it to you guys later. So yes, like Russ said in the chat, please let us know if you have any questions and introduce yourselves. Jesse left us for the day, and it looks like our next presenters are in here, but we're going to try to stick a little closer to our schedule if we can. So remember, all of this information can be found if you go to jcps.me/NTI. You can click on the teacher toolkit right here, and it will take you to this option to have the live virtual learning schedule. And again, that'll take you right here. I will get those sessions, those presentations from the previous sessions linked in as soon as I can. But if you scroll down, you can also see that we have information and videos for our curricular and instructional tools for NTI 2.0. So we have things for Edmentum and Gale and Literacy Footprints and Mastery Connect. And we also have some help and some sessions for Google Classroom, for Google Meet for synchronous communication, or I think a lot of people are calling that live teaching. We also have asynchronous or on-demand teaching through Screencastify. We have some videos on Jamboard on here. And then we have also Read Write. So some of you today may have, while you're watching these, have gotten a notification for Equagio. So Equagio and Read Write are two things that we're really excited about, and I believe our digital innovation leader, Kathleen Receiver, is working on a one-pager for those things that we will be sending out later. We also have the resources on the teacher toolkit for teaching and learning. So things from Deeper Learning, things from DEP. And then we have also down here some digital agility certification. So if you want to become a Screencastify master, click on there. It'll teach you how to do that. It'll take you through some videos and some sessions to learn how to more effectively use that tool. Same with Apple Teacher, Microsoft Educator, Nearpod, which a lot of teachers are using. We have Smart, we have Khan Academy, and then we also have our Google Educator certifications as well. And we also have some things at the top. We have a link to the Teacher Backpack, which is your one-stop shop for everything you need. If you go to jcps.me/teacherbp, I don't think it's capitalized actually, that will take you to our Teacher Backpack, where you can find all of your curriculum and instructional tools for every grade and subject broken down there. And our departments are very happy to have that one-stop shop available for you. So, it is, here we go. I think Rebecca Reynolds, she said she'll pin the yes card on the Twitter. She's got her Twitter handle is @Tech4Teach, so I'll go ahead and show you that really quickly. And let's see, so here's what I was looking for. Yes, yes cards. So she has a link here, which I'll post in the chat in just a second, where you can send a virtual yes card, and that's going to force me to make a copy, just like it'll force you to make a copy. So she sent hers to Jessica Cullen, which is in her living room, saying how awesome it was that she was starting out NTI doing what she is in her classroom. So send those yes cards along to some people that you see doing awesome things around the district, and brighten some people's days, because we know we all need that encouragement and positivity during this time. So it's 11 o'clock. Let's move on to our next session. We have Meeting the Needs of ELs with Drew Courtney. So, new presenters, welcome. Great to have you today.
Hi, thanks. We are excited to be here too. First time presenting with you guys.
Awesome.
All right, so like we said, my name is Drew Courtney. I am a high school ESL resource teacher, and I will let my co-presenter introduce herself.
I'm Elizabeth Rose, and I'm one of the middle school ESL resource teachers.
We've got Lewis Jackson, Kenya McCoy, Darlene Grove, Amy Callisti. They are all our elementary resource teachers. They will be available in the chat with questions that you guys might have.
All right, if we're ready, I will share my screen, Drew, and we can get started.
It's all you guys.
All right. All right.
All right, and then when you present, if you'll do two favors for me, if you'll scroll, you see that white box at the bottom right corner? Will you click the X right there?
Sure.
And then will you turn your closed captions on to large, please?
I'm happy to do that.
And then you'll just have to hit allow at the top for your microphone as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Are we good to go?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So like we said, we are here kind of talk a little bit about the needs for English learners, especially right now since we are in NTI status. But first, I want to kind of get a little bit of conversation going in the chat. And I want people to kind of tell us what you think the top 5 languages are in JCPS. I'll give you like 30 seconds. While you guys are typing, just a little bit about English learners. We have about 150 languages and dialects here in JCPS. And we kind of, if you know a little bit, if you have a second language or know a second language, you can kind of cheat. You kind of can see the top 5 languages here. But our top 5 languages, we've got our Spanish, Arabic, Somali, Nepali, and Swahili. Those are our top 5 languages here in JCPS. Now, how many English learners are in JCPS? As you guys will see here in a second on this little chart that we've got, as you can see, each year we are growing in numbers. So in 2019, we had about 9,000 English learners who tested with Access. And in 2020, now we have 11,000. And then even then, we're probably above, even higher this year as well. We'll have more accurate numbers when we do Access here in 2021. But as you can see, we are a growing population in Jefferson County. Speaking of Access, one thing that you guys might hear a lot is Access. Access is the yearly English language development test that all of our English learners take. And you guys will see that each of them will have a composite score. Based on the score, kind of tells you the level that they are at. So we have our entering, emerging, developing, expanding, and then we have bridging and reaching. So anyone with like a 1.0 to a 1.9 is in the entering stage. So if you guys have English learners in your all schools, that's kind of one great tool to look at and see kind of what is their access score. And then to kind of base it off of this chart here, kind of see where they are in their English development. Now for Kentucky, in order for a student to exit EL status, they need to have a 4.5 on their access.
And this quote, lower is faster, higher is slower. What that means is just that kids usually progress through those beginning stages of language development much quicker. And then once they get to developing, their progress usually slows down and it takes more time to move on up that little ladder.
Yes, exactly. Another thing that you guys will see that's really important for our English learners is called the Program Service Plan, or you guys might see it as PSP. This is the accommodations plan for all English learners. So on this plan, you guys will see kind of their instructional accommodations, so stuff that you guys should be doing in the classroom for them, as well as the assessment accommodations. So if they take they take MAP testing or any other state testing. These are kind of the accommodations they would need to have. Majority of the time, it's a lot of it's extended time, bilingual dictionary. Some may need oral native language support, readers, or scribes. Your ESL teachers, as well as your counselors, have access to these. So if you're ever curious about what accommodations you should be providing for your English learners, reach out to either one of them, because they are the ones that create these plans. So they will know all the accommodations for all of your English learners.
And Drew, I'm going to jump in and add in, I think sometimes it's a misconception that a PSP is really just a document that you look at for those state testing or district-wide testing, but really this is the document that should be followed with fidelity all year long, right? Like every time a student takes an assessment, they should be getting these accommodations to make the curriculum equitable.
Yes, absolutely. Another great service that we have here in JCPS is we have our own language services department, and they are available to offer interpreters for all of your language needs. There's a couple different ways that you can use it. We have a agreement with what's called Language Line Solutions. That is going to be our over the phone communication that we've got. So there's 3 different ways that you guys can actually access Language Line. You can use your phone, or you can use it from your computer, or there's even an app. And what we've done is we've actually created a nice little one-pager. A huge thanks to Molly Lane, who's one of the middle school resource teachers. She actually created this one-pager. If you all ever need to get in contact with your English learners' families, we recommend using this service because you will be on the phone with an interpreter as you are calling that family. So you actually will be on the line with the interpreter, then they will call the family that you want, and then they will be on the line with you to provide interpretation and translation as you speak with those families. Our language services department also offers over video communication as well. If you go to JCPS's website, just type in language services. Their website's super helpful with trying to arrange to get an interpreter, whether you need one online, like a video conference, or if we ever when we go back to in person, they are available that they can send interpreters to your schools as well. So if you have events or you need a parent meeting, they are always available to send interpreters for any of your language needs.
And I would just plug in, I've been using Language Line for a long time, but I've always just used this dial-in option. And I was just this year became aware that the app is an option. So if you are a tried and true Language Line user, I would highly recommend downloading this app because it is so much easier than actually dialing in the number. It's even easier than it used to be.
I agree. I always use the I always called as well. So I didn't even know there was a mobile version as well as a computer version of this as well. But it is great. It is so great to have the interpreter on the phone with you while you are talking, because it's very instant interpretation and instant translations, and they're very helpful there at that company.
Okay, so we have kind of gone through a quick overview of some logistics for ELs, and now we're going to go through some social emotional scaffolds and then some instructional scaffolds for ways that we can support the ELs sitting in our classroom, specifically in an NTI setting. So I'm going to start going through these social emotional scaffolds. We're going to talk about the importance of names, culturally diverse libraries, and building background knowledge. So I love this quote here. Mutilating someone's name is a tiny act of bigotry. Whether you intend to or not, what you are communicating is this: your name is different, foreign, weird. It's not worth my time to get it right. So obviously, when we have ELs sitting in our rooms, their names can be a challenge, but it is so powerful to take the time to get their names right. So up here, you guys have access to these slides. So this is actually a link. I'm not going to click on it right now, just because of time, but it will take you to a website where you can type in a student's name and then hear it pronounced for you, so you can practice it and get it right. This is one really easy way to lower the affective filter. That is our goal really for all of our students, is to make them feel safe and welcome, and simply pronouncing someone's name the right way is a great first step. I will also add that we're going to be sharing a Wakelet with you all, and that's another way that you can access all of the materials we're going to talk about today. So name tents. Name tents are a tried and true strategy that we've been using in classrooms, kindergarten through 12th grade. You have the kids fold a piece of paper, write their name on it, maybe put a few things that they want to share about themselves. But in an NTI setting, obviously, that complicates it. So one option is to create name slides. So Molly Lang, again, has created this beautiful example of a slide that she used in summer school. And this just is an easy way on a collaborative slideshow presentation. You can have your students create their name tent in a digital manner. Excuse me. Culturally diverse classroom libraries. So something you may or may not have heard before when you're considering text is to think about mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. Obviously, our students don't have access to our physical classroom libraries right now. So as I'm going through this, I want you to think about your text selection during NTI and think outside of just, a book that students hold in their hands. So when you think of books as mirrors, you want to think of books that students see themselves in. So they have characters that look like them, sound like them, live in neighborhoods like them. They can see themselves in the text. A window is a text that gives a student kind of a peek into another world. They can see what it's like for other people, realize that people live different lives than them. And then third is a sliding glass door. And this is a magical kind of text that transports students into another person's shoes. So they really get the full experience of what it's like to live as someone different. So building a diverse set of text is a really easy way to, again, make our students feel welcome, make them feel like they fit into our classrooms. And building background knowledge. So one thing that you hear a lot in ESL PD is what's good for ELs is good for all students. So these are not strategies that are tailored just for ELs. These are just strategies you can use in your classroom that are going to benefit every student in your room. So when we activate background knowledge, it gets our students on the path to building new knowledge. So 4 really easy strategies that can be applied K through 12. You can use a KWL chart. So this is just a pre-learning strategy in the K column where students generate what they already know about a topic. The W is to get them thinking. They can be asking questions and recording them. That can be done before a lesson starts or even as a thinking tool as a lesson is happening. And then L is a reflection tool where students just reflect on what they've learned, maybe how their thinking has changed, what questions have been answered, anything that they want to remember. And this could be easy to set up. Digitally, you could use Jamboards to set this up. You can do this in Google Slides. An easy strategy to transfer to the digital world. Anticipation guides are a tool that can be used as a pre-reading strategy where students just mark their opinion on a set of statements. And then after learning, they go back and reevaluate. Has their thinking changed? Has their thinking stayed the same? This just makes sure that our students are processing their learning and really thinking through the effects of the text that they're experiencing. Multimedia. So videos, music, images, visuals are a great way to support all student learning, but especially for ELs, it helps them bridge the gap between their native language and the target language. If we can provide a picture, it supports so much. And then finally, making connections. So we want students to be connecting with our content, whether they're connecting to a personal experience, to something they've seen in the media, to something they've read in another book. The more connections we can make, the deeper their learning can go. Sorry, I feel like I'm flying through this, but 30 minutes is not long.
So now we kind of want to look at some of the instructional scaffolds that we can provide for our English learners. And really, we're going to focus on kind of 3 big ones. We're going to look at scaffolding student responses, how to incorporate visuals and organizers, just like how Elizabeth said, visuals are a great tool with English learners. So we're going to see how we can incorporate them. And then also the big thing that we need to be mindful of is that interaction. So we need to provide interaction opportunities for our English learners as well. So for the first one, with scaffolding responses, what we kind of need to think about is when we scaffold a response, we can't just give our students, and this really applies with any student, we can't just give our student a lengthy assignment and just say, okay, here's your assignment, now go. Especially for our English learners, they can get very overwhelmed with the language needs that are in that assignment, especially the complexity and a lot of the vocabulary that they will need to know. So instead of just giving a lengthy assignment to a student, we kind of suggest breaking it up into chunks. So kind of break it down to more complex tasks, but at the end, kind of have an end goal in mind for that task as well. So that can be some things like maybe having some graphics, then maybe having an organizer, then providing some sentence frames or sentence starters or paragraph starters for your students. So as an example, if we're kind of looking at, like, let's say we're doing a lesson over the seasons, we might start with kind of maybe looking at a visual about kind of why do we have different seasons around the world? We might watch a video about the seasons. Then from there, we want to build on that. We want to build off of one another and then increase in complexity with that. So then maybe we might create a graphic organizer about what season is it during which month. Then at the end, we might say, okay, now we're going to have you write about what you've learned. We might start off with maybe a sentence starter with, like, there are changes in the seasons because. So when you scaffold, you want to make sure that you are kind of chunking things up, but then each of those chunks build on each other throughout the lesson. And some examples we mentioned a lot about sentence frames and sentence starters. Basically, these are great tools just to get, especially with our English learners, just to get them started with kind of their thinking. If we can start off the sentence by, I think that, then our English learners can kind of have some time to process their thoughts, and they kind of know exactly what they need to respond with. So they might come in the form of sentence frames, where you kind of have the sentence constructed for them, but you take parts out, and then your students might fill in those parts. You could do sentence starters. This is especially good if you're trying to get their opinion about something. You can say, I think that, or in my opinion, and then your student will continue with their thought. Or you might even have, and this is if you want them to write like an essay response, you might have paragraph frames. So that way your students can kind of see how your essay should be structured. So they will know kind of like, first we need to start with this. A second reason is this, finally, et cetera, et cetera. So they kind of have a format they can look for, and just a way for them to kind of take their ideas, and it's something visual for them to see, okay, here's how I'm going to construct my essay.
And like I mentioned before, we're going to be sharing a Wakelet with you guys. And there are 3 different resources that give you tons of examples of sentence frames and sentence starters and paragraph frames that you can use in your classroom. And I think one thing that's really important to remember is that these are not tools, that these are tools that let us assess students' content knowledge. So it kind of takes away the language challenge, because we're providing a frame that students can plug in what they know about content. So they're a great assessment tool to use in content area classrooms.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot, especially on the Wakelet. We have a lot of especially sentence starters for different ideas. So if you want to, like the one we have up here as an example, expressing an opinion, there is some websites that we posted that kind of give you ideas of some great sentence starters or sentence frames that you can use with your kids.
Andrew, I'm going to go back. I think it's important for us to look at when we're thinking about scaffolding lessons that we are trying to amplify the content. So like looking at this graphic, if the end goal is that students are building a house, we're not changing the task or changing the end product. We're just breaking it up into digestible chunks that allow our students to be successful. So I think it's important to remember that we're not asking you to water down your content. We're just asking you to break it down to make it more manageable for our Ls, right?
Yeah, one of the best quotes I think I've ever heard is amplify, not simplify.
I love
and that's
that.
what we're doing. We don't want to water down our lessons for our English learners. We want to amplify them up. We are just giving them different means of producing that.
Exactly. Okay.
So the other instructional scaffold that we can use is visuals. And visuals can come in a variety of different types. One of the things that we like to include is a lot of anchor charts. Now, if we were in person, these would be great. These can be posted around the room. So that way students could see kind of the processes or what they need to do. If you have something that you want them to use, you can create an anchor chart. So that way the students know if they're struggling, they have something visually they can look at, that they can say, okay, this is how I break this problem down, or this is how I need to focus like my personal narrative on. Another great visual is just actual visual vocabulary. So we include pictures of our vocabulary that we're trying to show. Like I believe that this example on here kind of looks at force and motion. So a lot of times our English learners will need kind of a visual representation of what that would look like. And another one that's great too is realia. So when you bring in stuff to your classroom, I love, especially over online right now, if you're having Google Meets with your kids, bring in some props, bring in some things to show them some of the stuff in action that you have around your house. If you're trying to say, this is what a rolling pin looks like. So kind of use some of those props that you have to really enhance the vocabulary for our English learners and for any student.
Something really interesting that we saw, we had an awesome PD the other day with Carol Salva, who's like an ESL goddess. And because in my head, I'm thinking, how do we use anchor charts in an NTI setting? And it was almost like she had taken a screenshot or created like a small digital anchor chart that she could then paste into a Google Doc or paste onto a Google slide, so that, you know, on a student's assignment, if your student's writing a personal narrative, you could just, you know, stick that little picture right in there, and then they can be looking at your anchor chart.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then the very last thing that we want to kind of go over with instructional scaffolds is just this interaction opportunities. We, especially with our English learners, the only way that we can learn English or learn a language is by using it. So we need to provide those opportunities for our students to be practicing the language. So a couple of things that we can kind of think about when we want to include incorporating some interaction is if we look at like TPR or total physical response, where kids do the motions or the actions of it, but then this could be a great way to kind of for them to practice because they are doing and saying at the same time. Another great way to kind of incorporate some interaction is by student collaboration. If you're having like Google Meets for NTI, let your students talk. Just kind of post like something like maybe just like a funny like question of the day, and just have your students just interact with each other. And then maybe if you want to do like breakout rooms, kind of get them to talk with one another as well. And then the very last thing we want to kind of think about too is we need to have those academic conversations also. There's a few ways that we can do that. We're actually going to show you on the next slide one great way that you can have an academic conversation, but we also need to know too that our kids need to also be using the academic vocabulary as well. So make sure that we are structuring those conversations that incorporate some of that academic vocabulary and those academic words that we want our students to use as well.
And sorry, Drew, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to add, this would be a great time to come back to those sentence frames. So we want low stakes for our students so that they feel comfortable practicing their language. So if we can provide them with a sentence frame and tell them how to structure their conversation, that makes it a lot more accessible and a lot less intimidating. All right, are we ready for the next one, Drew?
Yes. So speaking of academic conversations, I think one of the best strategies, and I've used this a ton when I was in the classroom with all of my high school students, it's a strategy called QSSA, which it stands for question, signal, stem, share, and assess. So basically what you would do as a teacher is you would ask a question based on whatever it is, whatever concept or whatever idea that you want them to think about. Then, without any of the kids talking, have your kids kind of think about what they want to say. And then they're going to give you a signal, whether it's give me a thumbs up, put your hand on the desk, put your pencil up. It might look a little different now we're in NTI settings, of course, but just give them the time to think. Then give them a signal when they have their answer. Then provide a stem a sentence starter for your students to think about with their response. Then have your students share with each other. So using that stem, using what they've thought about, have them share with someone around them, and then at the end, assess. So this kind of makes the students feel a little bit more prepared instead of just like on the spot, like, what do you think? It gives them time to think about it. You provide a sentence stem for them to kind of think about their response. They got a chance to practice with their fellow students. So then by the end, when you ask them, hey, what do you think about this idea? I've lost my word. They had some time to think about and process their answer before they share it out with everyone. It's a great way to have academic conversations as well, because you are wanting them to use some of that vocabulary and those ideas in their responses.
And Drew, I know you said that you had done this in high school. My background is in elementary school and middle school, and I've also used this strategy in both of those settings, and it's super effective. I think a couple important things to point out are when you get to this signal, you can preface it with the students. If you say, okay, give me a thumbs up when you have an answer, I'm not going to call on you yet. So you're trying to lower those stakes and let kids know, I want you thinking, I want you to tell me when you're ready, but you don't have to answer yet. Because then they're going to get an opportunity down here to share, check their answers with someone else before you're calling on someone to assess.
Yes, exactly. It gives them more time to really then sit and plan out kind of what they want to say without feeling stressed or feeling overwhelmed that they have to think of something right on the spot.
It's a great strategy for all kids, not just ELs. I mean, I personally like to feel prepared before I have to answer in front of a group of people.
I do as well. So it is great for, and a lot of these strategies that we've talked about, these could be good with all students as well. So a lot of these are just kind of great practices that we can be doing with any student. Of course, our background is with our English learners, but again, a lot of these strategies you can use with all of your students.
Definitely.
All right, so the very last thing, we want to thank you guys so much for coming and tuning in to our little presentation. Like we said, we've included a Wakelet with a lot more additional information about some of the stuff that we've talked about here. So if you are interested in kind of learning some sentence stems or some ideas about visuals, etc., we have provided with you guys a Wakelet that we've just shared a bunch of links and a bunch of resources. There's also the PDF about using LanguageLine. So if that's something that you would like to share with your schools or you use yourself, please feel free to go on there. It's a PDF that goes over all the directions that you need to use your LanguageLine.
All right.
So we thank you guys. Thanks for letting us come on.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Great information. I actually, while you guys were talking, I texted my wife and I was like, did you know about this pronounced names thing? And she's like, oh, that's so awesome. She's downstairs using it right now. So,
Yay!
Well, thank you all so much. For those of you watching, I have posted their presentation in the chat a few times, and it is linked to our schedule, and this video will be broken apart by me later this afternoon and put on our channel. So thank you, Drew and Elizabeth. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, everyone. It is 11:29. I do not think we have our next presenter in here yet. So we will wait just a few minutes. Our next session coming up is Homeless Student Support. Let me refresh just to make sure that everything is still on the up and up. So, what I was looking for earlier on Twitter, again, at JCPS Dig In, this is Rebecca Reynolds, a Zone 1 Digital Innovation Leader. She had posted a yes card for someone here. So, if you click on this link, which I will, I'll copy the link address here and I will post it in our YouTube chat. You can go there and it'll make your own copy for a yes card. You can fill it out and tweet it or send it to someone in your school or around the district. Just a little positivity encouragement for being awesome. So, like I said, all of these videos will be broken apart and put on our channel. So, look at the Teacher NTI 2.0 playlist. It's been updated today, and if you look, we have 52 videos on there now. And it's got everything on here that you could need. So, Google Meet for synchronous learning, Jamboard, Read Write. Some of you may have noticed recently that we had an extension called Equatio that was just added to all of our Google Chromes across the district. So, tools like that are going to be huge for us as 2.0 starts next Tuesday, which is crazy to think about that it's that close. I'm going to send a chat message just to see where our next presenter is, if anybody has a bead on them. Again, remember, I just got an email a little bit ago from Jesse Thompson with those gifted services presentations, so I will get those linked in as soon as I am done streaming here as well. So remember, you can go to the jcps.me/NTI toolkit, and you can find all of that information there. So if you click on the live virtual learning schedule, it will take you here. But you can also look at some choice board templates. We have the national quality online teaching standards there, which are very interesting to go look at, and hopefully will provide you with some ideas as we move forward into teaching virtually. We also have the teacher backpack, which our curriculum department and another digital innovation leader, Kathleen Receiver, have worked very hard on to make that a one-stop shop for all of your teaching needs. We have Edmentum resources, Gale resources, Literacy Footprints, Mastery Connect, and then we have, of course, our 5 core digital tools, Google Classroom, Google Meet, Screencastify, Jamboard, and Read and Write. So, I am waiting to see if we know where our next presenter is. I'm not sure where Giselle happens to be. She is not here. So we'll give her time. I think it's like college, right? You wait 10 minutes and then you get to leave for the day. Just kidding. We won't do that. So if we look at this afternoon, I will be done right after this session, but we will have Kyle Chandler, a middle school digital innovation leader, coming on to lead us through the rest of our afternoon. So we have specially designed instruction at 12:30, and then we have co-teaching in the NTI environment, ECE during NTI for administrators. You can't do it alone. Creating classroom systems to engage families with Crystal Hawkins. We have school CNXT for teachers. We are very excited to get that. We reached out to them yesterday after some schools had questions about that. So definitely tune into that at 2:30. It's a great way to communicate with families. We're building relationships with families to support NTI. And then we are going to end our day with superb screencast to engage all learners with the wonderful Michelle Shorey. So let's go ahead. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at JCPSDigIn to stay updated on all of the awesomeness going on around our district. And that requires you tweeting at us so that we know what's going on around our district. So please, when you see awesome things that you're doing or your students are doing or your coworkers are doing, tweet at us, use the hashtag JCPSDigIn, and we would love to give that a like and a retweet and show you some love and spread our brilliance across the district. So we can scroll on through here. We learned about Google Classroom and Infinite Campus Sync this morning. Let's see what else we have going on here. We have Mr. Quillen here, digital innovation leader at Fairdale High School, talking about using Canva for his syllabus this year. So you can see Canva's nice and pretty. It is a free and easy to use graphic, it's kind of like a Photoshop, but something else. So we are going to press on and play something from the channel, and I think probably what might be the best thing to do is let's find something down here that might be helpful. So let's take, I feel like everybody is going to be using any requests for what we want to watch in our last episode here. We could do let's actually do Google Meet for synchronous learning. So we're going to go ahead and play that, and please enjoy. Whoops, I have to share my screen though. That's probably
we're really
helpful.
Going to kind of go demo style, like we had Jack and Russ do earlier. So again, as we mentioned before, this is Google Meet for synchronous learning. Russ, does it look like you can see my slides all right?
I see them.
Well, can't turn on your microphone. All right, anyway, I won't be on long. So today we're going to discuss how to navigate to Google Meet.
Have you got your Google Classroom or your captions on, bud?
I can't. It's giving me an error right now.
Okay.
Telling me I can't turn on my microphone.
All right.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
We're going to begin and end a session in Google Meet, demo the educator controls, discuss grid view and layout option, which is new since last year, demo screen share options, which ton of, see how to record a meet and learn where to find it, and then discuss the national standards for quality online teaching and using closed captioning, ironically enough. So let's talk about those standards real quick. So we decided that this fit best probably with standard C on the National Standards for Quality Online Teaching for community building, because as we learned a lot in NTI 1.0, there was a lot it was a lot different for our students and staff to be away from that sense of community. And so this is really a powerful way to help build that with online video sharing and chat features that are included with Meet. So we really wanted to focus in on that. We'll also talk about tips to keep your Google Meet session secure. That'll be a large part of this, and how to navigate it. And then there are some follow-up videos in the slideshow if you want more information. So with that said, I will direct you over to this. So if you visit meet.google.com or in the waffle, you'll see it as an option. This is an alternative method to get to a Meet. You can, right here, you can type in really anything you want to, and it will be, you want to make it unique, however, because if I type in something that someone else has already typed, then it will cause kind of a conflict in that we will be in the same room unknowingly. So you want to make something specific to your content or to your name or your building, something like that, that the students can use. So when you generate a unique Meet link in Classroom, it's pretty, you're good. That's only going to be for you. But on here, you have the option to make one yourself. So for the purposes of this training, I created Meet NTI 2. So whenever I go to continue that, it will let me join here. What we're going to do is we're going to join as a couple of different educators. At one point, Jim will join me as another educator. I will join as a student additionally to this, and then we will also join as an outside party and let you see what that looks like. We had a lot of questions last year on what if we want to have guest speakers or whatever, and these are some new features. So I am now joining the Meet NTI 2 link. And right here is where you could get any of the joining info if you wanted to share it out with a class, or again, if you had an approved guest speaker, something of that nature. There's Jim joining me now, and you could share that with him. You could add people manually, or you could simply, if they're within the Jefferson County domain, you could simply give them this name. In this case, it was Meet NTI 2. It could be, Mr. Johnson's second period, more Mustangs. I don't know. Something unique, though, for your class. Because if multiple people create this kind of generic name here, when we jump in, we could mistakenly be in together, and we don't want that. So this is Jim and I now in the room. I'm going to also join as a student. If I drag this over, can you guys see the new screen? I'm going to join again. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, I see it. Yep.
Great. So this is me joining now as a student, and I have permission. This is my daughter. So we're going to join as her to see what the experience is for a student. Turn this over. Can you guys see the new screen? And give me just a second here. Join that. I'll see how many tabs I'm allowed before I kill my computer.
So what's awesome about this, guys, too, is I think the breakout rooms are new, right, this year in Google Meet?
Yes, they have not launched yet, but Rebecca Reynolds has a session coming up very soon to discuss that very scenario. Which is
later today at like 3:30. So
3:30 new features coming out there, Russ. Good job.
Yeah, another wonderful segue. All right, let me mute this side. All right.
Since we have a Hangout and a Meet open at the same time, you may want to mute one of the tabs, which is what I had to do. So I was getting a really big echo on my end, having two videos streaming at the same time.
Yes, I did the same. Are you guys still seeing me okay?
Yep.
All right, cool. So now that I am in here as a teacher, and there's a student in here as well, let me minimize this window real quick. Okay, so I can see Jim as a teacher. I can see the student right there. Okay, I can see my lists off to the side. By default, they're kind of in that grid view. So as the teacher accounts through JCPS that joined the Meet first, it doesn't necessarily matter that I created it. It's just that I happen to be the first teacher in here. Okay, so if Jim had joined this room first, he would have these controls. But since I joined first, I will get the controls as a teacher. That is not applicable to students, and they cannot join the room until you have joined the room as an educator.
So that's an important question that I got just 2 days ago. Somebody asked, can a student start their own Meet?
The students do not have the ability to start their own Meet, no. So the teachers have to create and start the Meet before the students can join, and then we will show you how to clear the room out completely, either the students leaving on their own, or you can remove the students. Hey, Don joined us. There you go. Meet NTI 2, if you want to join. Hey, Don. And so You can remove participants, okay, as a teacher account, and then once you've removed all the participants, if they didn't leave on their own, then you can close the meet down so that the students cannot rejoin. It'll basically tell you the room is closed, and as long as my computer holds up, I'll demo that for you.
And I think that's probably that's probably most of the questions I get, Kyle, is can I mute someone and can I kick them? And I know those features were kind of trickling in last year, but absolutely, as the teacher in the room, you have that ability.
Yes, right here. So if you guys see, when I clicked on my people and then used the drop down, I could see that it's grayed out right now because I've already muted myself on that account. But if this were me as a teacher looking at a student account, I could go down and hit the mic mute button. And it's, it could be something as simple as the dogs barking in the background and the kid. So the three dots right down here in the bottom, right next to present now, where you could share your screen with your class, you can click the record button right around. Can you guys see that okay, Russ?
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you can see that record me, and when you do that, when you hit record, it'll give you a dialog box asking you to accept to notify folks that they're being recorded. And then up in the top left, you'll see that it's going to kind of give you like a recording booth symbol that'll go red. And then once you stop the recording, it will go back to the first teacher account, okay, that entered the meeting. It will go to their Google Drive, and you'll get an automated email that tells you where it is and how to access it. It's not instantaneous. Some of these can be pretty large, the file size, so it takes Drive a little bit to process them. So be patient. It might take as much as 24 hours sometimes. Usually it's a few hours, but I can say okay, and then it tells me it's saving it to my Google Drive right there. Something else I didn't want to go ahead.
What are the guidelines as far as safer? Oh, look at that! You were thinking.
Yes, I was trying to get us there, fellas.
There, man.
So this is very important. So we've showed you how to record, but with great power comes great responsibility, you see? And nothing is more important than the safety of our students and staff here at JCPS. So we want to make sure if you need to do that, here are the parameters in which you should use. So you can visit this doc. It'll be linked in our presentation, but it's tips to keep your Google Meet safe. And it talks about how to do that, what we've talked about using closed captioning. But right down here, some of these larger bullets that are highlighted, it says, we encourage teachers to record themselves by giving brief instructional lessons that can be posted in the Google Classroom. But if you need to record a Google Meet that includes students, it can be recorded and used for on-demand video support for instructional purposes only. Record Google Meet sessions should not be shared publicly outside of the Google Classroom. So that was last year, and they expanded upon it further this year for NTI 2.0 and said that the best practice is to record the teacher only. And I'll show you how to do that. You'll basically just pin yourself in the video so that you don't see any of the students. And if there have to be students in that video briefly, the video should remain only in the Google Classroom and not shared on other social media platform or with other students outside their class the teacher is recording. So let's look at that real fast. So right now, heaven help you, I've pinned myself, sorry guys. But if I were recording right now, this would be how I could keep myself up instead of that grid view. So I can record me giving instruction to whole class right now. And then whenever I save this, if I need to share it with those who may have been unavailable to watch live later, all they're going to see is me. They're not going to see any of their counterparts or peers in the class. So this is the safest way, if you have to do this, is to pin yourself as the teacher, record it that way, and only share it within the Google Classroom. Do not share it outside of the domain. And again, that's for the safety of our students and staff.
So we don't want to post this to a YouTube channel or anything like that, right? We don't want to record ourselves.
Russ, even though you may log into YouTube with your JCPS ID, that doesn't mean it's part of the JCPS domain. Yeah, you can make a YouTube channel with your JCPS email, but you don't want to post anything on there because then that falls outside.
So Google Classroom only. One more question we had in the chat, guys, was, is there a mute all button?
They still don't have a mute all button available. Again, they continue to, even since, last spring, they continue to pump out these updates. Rebecca's got a whole slew of them coming. I don't think that's part of what she's going to present, but, hopefully they're listening. That would be great. They don't right now, though, no, not to our knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
But you can also, so let's look now at how to, with this last little bit, let's say that, and again, these tips to keep your Google Meet safe, let me just one more time, just really drive that home. So this is linked in today's schedule, or if it's not yet, it will be soon. And right here if you click this is actually a hyperlink that's going to take you straight to this tips doc, okay? So there's a lot of good stuff in here, but also if you're having questions about recording, when in doubt, go back to this sheet, please.
Yes, check that out.
All right, so I am giving instruction now. Let me see if it'll let me do closed captioning. I'll hit some of that stuff real quick. So if I can turn on closed captioning, you would need to show your students how to use closed captioning on their end. So it's starting to populate down at the bottom now. But even though I have them turned on for me, and if actually, Jim, tell me a quick little story so we can see the dialog boxes pop up.
I can tell you a quick little story. So even though we're seeing those closed captions on Kyle's end with me talking, Kyle's the only person that actually sees those in the Meet. So if I wanted to see closed captions on my Meet, I would have to turn those on mine. And that goes for every student. If you have 30 students in the class, the ones that want closed captioning would have to hit that button on their device. The teacher cannot activate that for them. If the teacher hits closed caption, that's only for the teacher. The great thing is it does show every speaker. And then another little bit of a downfall is currently it's been implemented, and of course it's from Google, who has great language translations. It only goes to English right now.
It only goes to English, and additionally, as of last year, when you record the Meet, it does not record the closed captioning.
Correct.
So here's something you could do. Since we have unlimited Screencastify Premium now, you could, as the teacher, you could Screencastify your Meet, pin only yourself with the closed captioning up, and then you could share that recording to your class if you needed to securely in the Google Classroom. That would get you closed captioning for those that may need it. So there's closed captioning. Tell the kiddos to turn it on for themselves during live instruction. If you want to record it, you could do Screencastify, pin yourself. You would get all of the closed captions. That would be good. And something now that I would like to show you, we have a lot of concerns and questions usually about how are we going to make sure that these students are not in there without our supervision? How do we know it's secure when we close it? So let's go over that real quick. So if you want to make sure that the students cannot join the meeting after you have left, you've got this option as well. So I, as a teacher account, can go in, drop the box down, and I can remove them from the meeting with this button right here. So what you have to do to make sure that they can't rejoin is make sure the room is clear first. If I leave right now and leave the students in there, the students will be able to stay in the room. So the act of me leaving the room and Jim leaving the room, even if all teachers are gone, if you have not first made sure that the room is clear, those students will be left alone in there. So it's imperative that you shut down the room completely. It's no different than we had somebody, related last year to leaving the classroom and leaving your kids alone in the classroom, right? You make sure the classroom's clear first, then you close your door and you go to lunch or whatever. So same thing. And in order to do that, if for some reason they've stepped away or you can't get them to hop off for you so that you can conclude the session, you can remove that participant from the meeting this way. And you really can do that at any point if you needed to. But you hit that button right there and it'll take them out. And then on the student end, let me see if my computer will hold up long enough to demo this for you. On the student side, here we go. Okay, it says someone has removed you from the meeting. So this is what the students will see right here. All right. So if I want to return to the home screen, now I can rejoin as that student if I want to, as long as the meeting is open, and I'll show you that. So I'll do my Meet, NTI2. So I can get right back in, no problem. But let me show you what happens if we close the Meet completely and then try to get back in as a student. That's the key here. So I'm going to join now. I'm back in as the student. And Jim, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I'm sorry, Kyle. Go ahead.
You're good. So let's say I'm like, all right, Jim and I decided we're going to conclude the session. So everybody leave, and there's just one student that for some reason isn't around. Okay, well, I'm going to make sure that they've left. Okay, so remove them. And then I don't think I can remove. Yes, I can. Jim, I'm going to remove you from the meeting as well. Okay.
Oh, all right.
So I'm removing Jim, and then I'm also going to hop out of the call, and then I'll show you what it looks like when the student tries to get back in at that time. So I've hung up. It says you've left the meeting. Now I'm going to go back as the student, okay, and it says someone has removed you, and I'm going to try to to rejoin this now. I go, well, I walked away as the student. I thought, well, maybe they're still giving instruction. I need to hop back in. I don't want to miss this. I had to get some popcorn or something. So got to. So whenever I try to actually join, it says this meeting has already ended. Okay, so that's key. However, if a teacher account or any of the students for that matter had been left in there after we left, they would be able to get back in as they pleased. So you got to make sure.
And I tried to get back in, and as a teacher, it let me even after he got that message as a student, which would then basically be me coming back in after lunch and opening the door to that classroom. Students would then be able to get back in.
Correct. And that's a great distinction. As a matter of fact, since you joined first now, Dim, you may have those. You probably will have those controls. Let me go back to my sheet with you guys real quick and make sure that we touch what we need. You can do that inside of Google Classroom, which Russ and Jack talked about earlier. It'll be unique.
And with beginning and ending a session, we were talking about that, and somebody had asked, do I have to remove every student manually? In theory, as long as you're telling your class it's over, most kids are going to leave, most students are going to leave your classroom. If you do have a couple scholars that are left with a blank screen, then yeah, you will have to remove them manually just to be sure you can close your door safely.
Right. We've talked about muting a participant. Also, it's good to wait about a minute just to be safe after everyone has cleared the room, but you as the teacher, wait about a minute, then you leave the room just to be sure that all the stuff has had time to sync up through the interwebs and make sure that room is good and closed. We talked about muting and removing. We talked about recording. Again, when in doubt, please reference this document. We talked about closed captioning. We didn't really touch on grid view yet. Let's go back to that real quick. So, Jim, can you hop back in that NTI 2.0 meeting with me? We've got that, and then we've got if you're a guest, how to join.
Give me 1 second. Somebody else had a question you may be able to answer while I'm waiting to join here. And they asked if they create a recurring Google Meet on Google Calendar, will students be able to join that when they're not there?
Those same rules apply, okay? So the teacher account for JCPS must first be a teacher account must first be in the room before the students will be allowed to join it. So that's still applicable. And let me see now if I can get it. I feel like that movie Inception a little bit right now with all the different windows and tabs I have open. Okay, return to the home screen. Okay, so now I'm going to get back in as this student because, again, we wanted to look at that view, that grid view. Okay. And then one last thing, we've had questions in the past about if I wanted to have a presenter join, and last year we were having to jump through a few hoops to get them to where they could be included, but it looks like there has been an update that we will go over so that you can have control over accepting that as the teacher account in the room. So we are now in the room, and you actually can change your view this year. They've added this. This is the change layout button. Okay, so you've got the snowman in the bottom right-hand corner, and then you've got change layout just under that record button if you are a teacher account. And I can go and I can choose auto, where it will bounce around between the speaker. We've got tiled, which is up right now, which is like that grid view. You've got sidebar, which puts the faces. See, so if there were multiple participants in the room, they'd all be lined up on the right. And then the main one. So, get in here, play with this, see which one, works best for you. And know that feature is available to you. So let's look at now, if I, for example, want to have a guest reader, maybe an author for an elementary school session, or a business partner for our career and technical folks in high school that wants to address a CTE group, maybe one of our ESL groups wants to talk to somebody, something of that nature. So here's what we can do now. What you can do now is if you share the link to the Meet. Remember at the beginning, it gave me an option to copy that link down, and I share it with an outside participant. I'm going to try to join now from this account, and it says ready to join, and then the differentiation as it says ask to join. So if I'm outside of the JCPS domain, it's telling me I've got to ask for permission to join this meet that I have had a link shared with me. So yes, I'm going to ask to join. And then when I've asked to join, see what happens? Now it's saying to me, as the teacher account, Jim, do you see this pop up as well, or is it just me?
Sorry, I'm muted, man. Yeah, we see it, absolutely. I will say another thing. I try to, in case, somebody lets out your code, I try to meet NTI2.
It won't work, yeah.
And it does not work. It says meeting not found.
You have to have the secure link, correct. Which is the only way the code works is if you're on our domain. That's a good point. So it's it's pretty secure, but again, you're the last line of defense if you're that teacher account in there. So pay attention. If it's the guest you invited, go ahead. But you can deny them or you can admit them. So,
but they can only do it with a link, not with the code.
Correct. Only the link. Yep. So I'll admit. And then there you go. And it's like, hey, and it also keeps reminding me this person is outside of Jefferson County Public Schools. So I've got multiple participants here in this meeting. So Russ, Jim, any other burning questions that you guys can see in the chat that we can hit in our last few minutes?
I was trying to watch as we were going, and I picked up a couple. And we've got, obviously, our great teammates are in the chat just hammering the questions out. They're doing a great job.
And I think that we have hit all of the controls, beginning and ending a session.
So Megan asks, what view will my kids need to select to see me and not each other? My kids couldn't always see me if I was demonstrating.
So you can, Megan, you can have your kiddos click the pin feature. So it sounds to me like some of them are defaulting to auto or to spotlight, which is where it will follow around the speaker. Obviously, if the kids are kind of making some noise in the background, instead of playing whack-a-mole and muting them all, you might instruct them, hey kids, make sure you pay attention to this. And if they click on the people up here in the top first, and then they choose the pin icon. Okay, so as soon as I click on him now, there you go. Well, that's pinning. So now I have pinned Jim. So when you see that grayed out with the little push pin now, so if Jim was the teacher and I'm the student, that's how I would navigate to make sure I only see this teacher reading me a story or giving me instruction, whatever it is.
So whether I'm talking or not, it's going to show me. Now you can't force the pin out to the students, which would be an interesting take also.
Absolutely, yeah, that would be neat. But right now, they would have to know how to do that on their own. That's correct.
Yeah.
Another cool feature, by the way, is the chat. We hardly ever touch on that, but it's huge. It's a great back channel. You can instruct the kids to raise their hand, which Rebecca will introduce some new features coming down the pipe with that option, not in the chat. But if they want to talk to you and you don't want them to interrupt or unmute, you could use the chat feature, which is also key. You could post links in the chat.
Jamboard and things like that.
Yeah. So,
while you talk.
Not only is it, robust, but it's secure, and that's key. So but we are going to do this session again next Tuesday, and so
all right, everybody, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. That is all for us this morning. I really appreciate you being here with us this week, last week, the week before that. Kyle Chandler will be here this afternoon. I'll go ahead and throw that schedule up so you guys can see that. We'll be starting at 12:30 with specially designed instruction for MSD during NTI. So go get yourself some lunch. My wife brought me some McDonald's because she's awesome. So, again, thank you for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on the Digital Learning Channel. And good luck next Tuesday. You guys are all doing amazing work, and thank you so much for pioneering and going where no teacher has ever gone before. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend.